This is the first Tuesday of the month Waupaca City Council meeting.
All right, welcome everybody to our bi-weekly City Council meeting. This is a little different tonight in that we have a couple of public hearings first before we actually start the the regular City Council meeting. So I will call the first public hearing to order. In attendance, all members of the council are here except for Chuck Whitman, who's excused tonight. We have a purpose for the hearing, and the first hearing is to do with the ordinance amendment for Chapter 17 of the zoning code. And if you were to read what the public notice says, you might not get everything you need to understand what's going on. So I'm just going to ask Brennan just to explain what we're trying to do with this ordinance change.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. If you look on your packet for page 71 would be the actual ordinance, but the understanding of this ordinance is the creation of the B7 district. Over the last 4 to 5 months, staff have been working with business owners within the downtown, along with the design review team internally and the plan commission, to come up with a new zoning ordinance that would permit the live, work, or residential on the first floor of businesses within a certain area of the downtown. Many of you know this was a direction that was given by several months ago to move forward with determining how we could create more economic vitality within the downtown, but also restrict where residential could or cannot be located on the main floor of properties within the downtown area. So with that was the creation of the B7 district that outlines whether it's an as-of-right use or whether it's a special use, depending on the size of the building and certain square footage criteria that business owners may be seeking.
Okay, makes sense? All right, so this is to give the public the ability to speak if they'd like to speak in favor of it or against it, but we'll start with testimony in favor of the change in the ordinance, the zoning code, I should say, for the downtown area. So if you'd like to give testimony in favor of this, please step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and keep your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Any discussion?
I would like to speak in favor of the change. I think anything that brings...
Can you just give your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kari Esbenson. I live at 124 East Lake Street. And I'm excited by anything that brings more people to our downtown area, especially supporting the arts community in the area, which is kind of a unique niche for our community. And so I think it's wonderful to have be able to offer this opportunity to people like this to come to our community and help us keep our downtown area a healthy, vibrant place.
Thank you, Kari. Anybody else that would like to give testimony in favor of the change in the zoning code?
Rick Wolter, 112 North Main. I'm in favor of the proposal. However, today it was very interesting as I'm painting the front of the building to have passersby come, and it's rather serendipitous that several people that I talked to today, one was actually interested in renting a downtown area in our building and had some unbelievable ideas. And when I told her about the possibilities of this, she was just very excited, of course, because it was like, wow, you guys are doing that. So it made a lot of sense from a business standpoint about this. And I just want to go on record to say that I think any downtown area that's willing to work with artists and businesses to help economic development thrive in communities that need it, it's exciting. And I just want to take this time to thank all of you, Mr. Mayor, the council members, everyone here on the staff, for all your efforts during this process. So thank you very much, and looking forward to a favorable outcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Anybody else that would like to give testimony in favor? Hearing none, any Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi,
Sorry.
I'm Tammy Wolter, also 112 North Main, and I just wanted to publicly say thank you to all of you. Very much appreciate all of the effort, hard work, and support. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. All right, any other testimony in favor of the zoning code change? Seeing none, we would take testimony in opposition. Any testimony in opposition? Hearing none, those of you that spoke, if you had anything else you would like to say, this is your opportunity for rebuttal. If you'd like, just to say something that you forgot. If not, I declare this hearing closed at 6:07 p.m. This is on the agenda for tonight. It's the first reading, of course, so council will not be voting on it tonight. They will be voting on it at our next meeting, which will be on October 17th. All right, we have one more public hearing, and we'll do this one. Same people that are in attendance. This has to do with an ordinance amending Chapter 10 of public nuisances. And again, if you read the public notice, it probably doesn't tell you exactly what it is. So Brennan, if you want to just explain it in pictures to us.
Yep, thank you, Mayor, members of council. This item, the ordinance is on page 67, but the general understanding of this ordinance was it was actually a follow-up action between some Plan Commission stuff that we worked on late last year and earlier this year, along with some code enforcement. We were cleaning up Chapter 10 as relates to grass and weeds and enforcement of that from a code enforcement side of it, and maintenance of properties, whether they're developed or undeveloped, and what those rules and regulations are. We had some discrepancies, and we were putting it into ordinance form. The secondary part of this ordinance was actually the creation of the natural landscaping portion of this. We have several property owners within the community that have a desire to have natural landscaping within their property, whether it's within the boulevard, that the street that is part of the right of way, or their actual property. But it has been an enforcement, I'll say nightmare, because there's a difference between long grass and natural planting. So working with the Public Works Department and the Plan Commission, we came up with the proposed ordinance amendment that defines, what a natural landscaping is, but also provided the rules and regulations and parameters to create a natural vegetation plan for the property, which would actually have a plan that would be submitted to the city for consideration, and it would have to be approved by my department and the Public Works Department before any type of natural landscaping plan would go into place. So again, it provides the parameters of what would be required, and this would be consistent with other communities that we've looked at that have similar type of ordinances where homeowners are seeking alternative methods to their landscaping within their front or backyards.
Okay, so again, this is the public hearing. You will have the first reading at the council meeting later on tonight. Again, we'll take testimony in favor of this change in the ordinance. If there's anybody that would like to give testimony in favor, please step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and limit your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Any testimony in favor? Hearing none, is there any testimony in opposition to this public nuisance change in the ordinance? Any opposition? Hearing none, we will declare this hearing closed at 6:10 p.m. Thank you. Give us about 3 minutes and we'll start the regular city council meeting. All right, welcome everybody to our regular city council meeting. This is Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017. I do call this meeting to order, and we will begin as always with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
justice for all.
And we will ask Sandy to read the open meeting statement for us.
This meeting and all other meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
Thank you, Sandy. And would you also take roll for us?
Brian Smith.
Here.
Steve Hackett.
Here.
Lori Chestnut.
Here.
Paul Hagan.
Here.
Alan Keeland.
Here.
Scott Perchatsky.
Here.
Dave Peterson.
Here.
Paul Mayo.
Here.
Chuck Whitman. Mary Fair.
Here.
And Eric Olson.
Here.
9 present, we have a quorum.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda. There are no additional items to be added to the consent agenda, so what you see on your agenda is what you have. Are there any items that council members would like to see moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda where we would make a motion individually on that item? If not, we would need a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Fair, second by Chestnut, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion?
I would like to make a comment, if I may. Any pay requests that come before us, I think should have a department head initial or an okay on it. And I know we've seen that in the past, but it was missing this time again. So I would request that we have those on pay requests.
Okay. All right, anything else on the discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Regular agenda, again, there are no additional items that are on the regular agenda. We would be just looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hackett, second by Keelan, that we approve the regular agenda as printed. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. We have non-agenda items and announcements. We have nothing under that tonight. We do have public input. If there's anybody who would like to speak to us on public input, this would be anything that's not on the agenda tonight. You have the opportunity to speak to the council and the audience. We just ask that you step up to the podium, give your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes or less.
Rick Walter, 112 North Main Street. As we've been involved with Cooper Street and have spent a fair amount of time down there every day, one of the things that I'd like the council to consider is to somehow regulate the speed at which vehicles careen through that area while we're trying to park or unpark or cross into the parking area, or small children are running into the streets, etc. Perhaps speed bumps or some other type of remedy, may be useful. But it's very surprising after 6-8 months of living there how fast vehicles go through there with no regard to pedestrian or parking traffic in the area.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Actually,
Thank you.
I think Aaron and a number of staff members are talking about what to do with Rotary Park, so this would be a good segue there.
Yeah, we are. We've had 2 committee meetings to this point. We actually have a public input meeting next Thursday, 4:30 to 6:30 right here at City Hall. We'll be on the front lawn. Unless it's raining, we'll come inside. So I will take a note of that, see if we can discuss that and move forward from there.
What's the date?
October 12th. Yep.
All right. Any other public input for tonight's meeting? All right, let's move on then. We have unfinished business. This is discussion decision on detachment of the Oz Natural Area property John, are you going to start us with that?
The minutes do reflect a email which was directed at the city council from Russell Butzkowitz and Carrie Esbenson concerning detachment of the Oz property. The gist of that is appropriately worded, does pretty much summarize what the procedure is, what the city's involvement could be. I believe that those parties intend to, at the same time as the city would initiate a petition for detachment, would also initiate a petition for detachment for the other parcel that they own adjoining the Oz property. Most of everything in here is appropriate. I believe the city can do that. They also can do that. There's a couple of time frames in here that are not set forth, one being that after the notice of intent to detach is published, the petition must be filed by the petitioner within 120 days. There would be a hearing on that. And if the detachment was approved by ordinance, it would require a 3/4 majority vote of the city council. There is one further step after that. The town must also accept that by 3/4 majority vote and enact their own ordinance to attach that property. There is one further step which is not outlined in here, which the council and the petitioners don't have much control over. There is the final provision that there is a 30-day waiting period after enactment of these ordinances to allow voters to request by petition of 5% of the voters, of the electors at the last gubernatorial election can file a petition to take this up as a referendum and to make a determination by referendum as to whether or not the detachment should be allowed. And that has to be petitioned within 30 days after the enactment of the ordinance. And then if that petition is filed for a referendum, there is a special election which has to be conducted, I believe, within 70 days of that request, something like that. But in any event, there's a special election and there's some particulars that have to go along with it. So while the city can file this and cooperate with Mr. Butzkowitz and Ms. Esbenson concerning this matter, there are some things that are not under city control. There's only one other observation, is that what they are suggesting is that there be 2 petitions, and it could be that it would be difficult for the petitions to go hand in hand depending on whether there is objections to one petition and not the other petition. It's possible that the town could approve one petition but not approve the other petition. The outcome would be you wouldn't know the outcome until it all was concluded, and it may not end up that both parcels would be in the town. These parcels are a little bit different. One's a city park and one is not. There'd be some objection by city people that a park be detached, and they don't care if the other one is detached. There's all kinds of scenarios, and just in light of that, it would make sense for some discussion with myself and possibly the attorney for the other petitioners as to whether or not it would be advisable for there be one petition for both properties, which would require the property, the Oz property, to be turned over to these folks before the petition is filed. Then they would be assured that whatever the outcome was, both parcels would be treated the same under one petition. That's the only observation that I have. Otherwise, basically what they have put in here is fairly well set forth.
Thanks, John. Brennan, the process of detachment, Anything you want to add there on how that would work, or?
No, I mean, the state statutes outline it pretty, pretty straightforward as relates to detachment. It's always been by the owner. It's not, usually city initiated, like an annex or anything else. It'd be my recommendation for that the property be turned back over to Russ and Kari, because part of the whole process is they're going to need, a new survey, a new meets and bounds. And to John's opinion regarding, we're not knowing the outcome, it would be better if the property were one parcel being detached at the time instead of trying to do this with two separate parcels with two separate applications. So my recommendation would be, depending on what the council does with everything else that was identified at the last meeting, would be to turn the property back over, which at that time, Russ and Kari could move forward with their application after they've resurveyed the property and joined it together as one parcel to detach it from the city at that time.
So let me make sure I understand this. At our meeting 2 weeks ago, council agreed that they would help the Kari and Russ to detach this property if the town of Waupaca would so receive that property. That's where we are again tonight here, really is the same question, whether the city is willing to do that. But what I'm hearing from John is that there has to be a hearing first before we can approve the detachment, or did I miss something there?
You cannot approve any detachment this evening. There has to be a publication, there has to be a petition, and then there has to be an action on an actual ordinance of detachment. And none of that has happened yet. But this does outline what has to happen, and I believe what the request is this evening is these folks would like to know if, with just a indication from council that they are on board with cooperating with them to get this done. I believe the council is. I haven't seen any reason that they wouldn't be, but there are some suggestions that might make it a little more assured, like I said, to have one petition as opposed to two, to make sure that they track evenly and that the outcome is the same for both parcels, whether it's detached and attached to the town or whether the town doesn't is unknown. And there are some unknowns because you don't know if someone's going to come in and have a referendum and it gets voted down and it never gets detached. So there are those things which the city is not in charge of and can't guarantee, and neither are Mr. Buckwis and Harry Espenson have no idea as to whether or not that would happen. Speculating, I would guess that is not going to happen, but things happen. And we've all seen that, where you never expect things to happen, and they do. So I'm just cautioning you about what could happen.
Understood.
Yep.
Anybody have any? I see your hand, Kari, so I won't miss it. Any questions of John or Brennan or Henry, for that matter, or anybody here that can help with that? Scott?
First, we have to officially, or have we officially returned the Oz property to them?
We have not.
Okay. So we have to do that first, right? I mean,
Well,
They're suggesting not. They're suggesting that the detachment happen and then we would turn it over to them.
oh, okay.
well,
It could be
and-
done either way as far as I'm concerned. It's just that one way has a little better assurance of the outcome as opposed to the other way. Things could happen, so it would come out way wrong if one parcel got detached and accepted and the other parcel didn't.
Okay.
Yep.
Eric?
Well, if it can be done either way, and they're asking it to be done this way, you're giving us the risk, but isn't that their risk then?
It is, absolutely, and I don't have a problem with that, and I'd be more than happy to cooperate with them and their attorney to get this done the way they want it. I'm not objecting to that, I'm just making some suggestions about what the possible outcomes could be.
Well, and let's not forget, though, that there is some risk in the city asking for the detachment and the township not accepting the detachment, or that we ask for detachment and the township agrees to it, and Kari and Russ don't want the property. You know, so we have a little bit of a risk there. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen either, but I think if we're putting everything out here to talk about, I think that's important to understand that too. So we could end up with some property a park that actually belongs to the town of Waupaca. That's a city park. So, all right. Anybody else have any questions? Kari, again, just step up to the podium, give your name and address.
Kari Esbenson, 124 East Lake Street. I just want to extend my appreciation to Attorney Hart for supporting at least the potential, the option that we're offering forward. We went before the Waupaca Town Board last night and just to propose this idea to them. And where things are at with them is they aren't willing to talk about it until the detachment has actually occurred. I think they're not altogether convinced that, because detachment doesn't happen often, they're not altogether convinced it's going to happen, so they don't want to even discuss the idea until they know the detachment's actually occurred. So we can't really even proceed forward with them. They were pretty resolute in that last night.
So the request for the detachment.
What?
You're saying the request until we
yeah.
request the detachment.
Yeah, I guess I have to clarify that with them. Maybe they'll, I don't know, the way they said detachment, didn't they, Russ? I don't know. Yeah, they kind of said detachment last, but maybe they meant the request for the detachment. And maybe that's something you could converse with them about. But the only other thing I wanted to just clarify was that we did call a Department of Administration to find out whether this was a viable option, and they said that because the city is the landowner for Oz, they are considered the landowners like we're the landowners for our parcel. So it is entirely acceptable for the city to initiate the detachment on their parcel. It's within the statutes and the provisions. And we, realize what you're saying is there's some risk that maybe they both won't align, but I guess we want to just be able to sleep at night and feel like this is, there's a good chance this is going to move ahead and be done, and that that we do truly have the support from the council for detachment, assuming there isn't resistance, in a hearing, and there's resistance on the part of the public, but that, and so anyway, just want to extend our gratitude for you guys considering this option, just given all that's gone on, to let us sleep a little better at night and feel like things are moving ahead in a positive fashion. So thank you.
Kari, can I ask you one question about the property?
Yeah.
The property that you own right now is 13 acres.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Oz property is how many acres?
21. And what I should just clarify is that at the time of donation, this was all one parcel. We cleaved off the best part, gave it to the city, retained 13 acres. And what we just want to do is be made whole again. That's all.
Well, my question actually was, do you plan on putting that property back together?
Yeah, that's what we would like to do, is
Okay.
put it back together again and manage it as a natural area again. We collect maple syrup or sap in the spring. Our goat idea.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
I just
that's
want to
fine.
make sure I understand this. So somewhere along the line, the lines are going to have to be redrawn because it's two different parcels right now. And they're going to have to ask that those two properties be adjoined again, right? Is that correct in what I'm saying? If they want it to be one property again, what's the process?
If it were in the city and they wanted to join those parcels, they could have it resurveyed and get a approval of a new certified survey to join the parcels. In the township, I'm not certain as to what they could do, but it would be of a similar nature. whether this town would require a survey or whether they could come up with a meets and bounds and create a separate parcel and get a new tax number. I don't know that. I could find out. But in the city, the easiest way would be to resurvey it. It is, as you can see on that map up there, parcel A and parcel B. I think it's lot 1 is parcel A and lot 2 is parcel B. They would just redraw that, have the surveyor or some surveyor redraw the map, make it just one lot, certified survey map, a new survey, and have it approved by the city. Then it would be, you could petition to have that one lot detached. If they did it afterwards, they'd have to combine it according to whatever the town procedure would be. I don't know exactly what that is.
Okay.
Same kind of a deal though.
So, just throwing this out to council here, and I'm not even sure if Russ and Kari are interested in this, but what if there was a survey done and these two properties were adjoined before we requested the detachment, and then they would just have one, the city would just have one request for detachment? Can we do that?
To adjoin two
Oh, one has to
adjoining-
be taxed. and
two adjoining parcels to be adjoined must be owned by the same owner.
Okay,
So they couldn't be made one parcel. We owned a parcel and they owned a parcel.
okay. Well, that was my question.
But we would
All
have to
right.
transfer this Oz property to them first, they could combine it. Or after the detachment, we would convey the Oz property to them and they could then combine it.
Okay,
At some point, they have to own it, to both parcels, to get it combined.
okay. So they went through the expense of separating the two properties when they gifted the Oz property to the city. So if they're going to put those two properties back together, and it will have to be done after the detachment, right? There will have to be a survey done
Well,
if they want to do that.
it depends. And as I had suggested, it would make more sense to determine the outcome and to save on two different parties petitioning for the same outcome, to do the combination now by the city deeding the property to them as was authorized at the last meeting, and then have them do one petition and have the city support that as we've indicated this evening. It doesn't have to be done that way. It can be done the other way around, but I don't see the economy in doing that, but if that's what they would like, it certainly can be done, and I would cooperate in doing that as far as they're concerned.
So basically what I'm getting from this, and you can correct me again, of course, John, because you will, but if we were to deed the property over to Russ and Kari, okay, they would own both parcels. They could have it resurveyed, okay, so that it's one parcel now, and then they could go to the township and ask for detachment on that one larger parcel, which would be just one parcel.
They would, once it's combined, they would petition to have that parcel detached and to seek approval by the town to accept that detachment by acceptance or annexation of that parcel, correct?
Okay.
Of the one parcel together, right?
And I would offer up too that if that's something that Russ and Kari are interested in doing, that the city would, and this would have to take council approval, obviously, pay for that survey to be done so that those properties could be, we could do it better if they wanted us to, pay for that survey so that those two properties could be put back together, and then it would make it easier for them to do the detachment.
And actually, there really isn't going to be a new survey. The work has already been done, the field work is done, the stakes are all there. All they do is draw a new map without those boundary lines and make one it's basically just a surveyor redrawing the map. It happens all the time. And they don't have to do much field work because that was done long ago. So the cost of a new survey would be considerably less than if it was a brand new survey to go out there and survey the whole parcel.
Okay. Okay. Just a thought here. But either way, I think, council, with your actions 2 weeks ago, you have agreed that we would allow this property to be detached. And if this town of Waupaca does so accept the property, then then the process would be completed. And I don't know, we didn't really talk about the other 13 acres, but, so maybe we should ask if that's something that you're okay with too, that if they ask for, and they are asking for detachment of those 13 acres also, that we would be okay with that.
Mayor, I would like to suggest we move forward as Attorney Hart suggests or recommends. Deed the property, the Oz property, back to Kari and Russ. Pay for the survey, as you suggest, or what needs to be done to combine the properties, to allow a petition to be made, only one petition to be made to the city for detachment, and one to be made to the town of Waupaca for attachment. Seems to be the common sense way to approach it, and most efficient. And I don't know whether we're acting on that tonight, or whether I can make a motion on that. Or
Well, I think you could make a motion for staff to move forward with that concept. I mean, they're actually not going to be detaching the property, because you heard the process, but
okay.
yeah.
I would make that a motion.
Okay. Motion by, hold on, we got, whether you think it's the right motion or not, but let me get this. We have a motion by Mayo, do we have a second? Second by Prochatsky. Okay, John.
Given what we've discussed tonight, I think it would be appropriate to give those folks time to discuss what we have just suggested with their attorney, to see if that is something that they can live with. This has come at them from a kind of a sideways look. I don't know that they've been approached. I haven't spoken to them about this at all. I did email them and requested that they come in and visit with me concerning our last year's council meeting, and that hasn't happened yet. But whether or not that makes sense to them, they did have some advice from the Department of Administration. They apparently have had some advice from an attorney, I believe, that this was what they'd like to do, and maybe they would like to revisit that with some other people before we would make a decision about going that route, because it would be appropriate for them to say, you know, I guess that maybe does make sense and we'll do it, or it doesn't for some reason and we'd like to go the original route, which as far as I'm concerned makes no particular difference how we do it. It's just for efficiency's sake, and it seems clearer to me to have one petition, but if they want to do it with two, and their attorney is telling them to do that, maybe they should take that advice and we would go with what they want to do. I'm just saying.
Let Henry.
Well, I guess I just, you know, because they're seeking some comfort that the city's going to go through it. Could there be a vote, just a general consensus that the city's agreeable to detach both parcels? They're in the city. They're our city properties. And regardless of the way it's done, that there's a consensus that once this comes forward, you will support it.
That would make sense.
And that gives them the comfort level, and then it allows staff to do what we need to do.
Russ had his hand up before I asked Paul if he wants to change his motion, but Russ, did you want to say something? Again, you have to give your name and address. Thank you.
Russ Butkowitz, 124 East Lake Street. I think that what we would like to do is to discuss this with our council. Henry's exactly right that part of what we're really looking for is as much assurance as we can that the properties would get detached and would get moved. You know, and I respect Mr. Hart's discussion about things that some of this stuff is beyond any of our control here. Part of the importance of this is that, you know, one of our objectives is to manage these invasives, and that even after we've done all the herbicidal and all of that stuff, there's still going to be residual stuff that needs to be taken care of, and trying to do that with grazing goats and things like that isn't going to fit very well with city statutes, and that's part of the reason that we want to get it moved out. So, you know, if we were to accept the parcel back and then it stays in the city, it's going to put a really big kink in our plans, and so that we'd like as much as possible to try and avoid that, and we would like, I guess, as much assurance from the city and the council that they're in agreement with that, they would be okay with that. Thank you.
Yep. Paul?
So, my motion was to deed the property, the Oz property to Russ and Kari, to move forward and to move forward as far as the process of detachment. I guess I'd like to stipulate that I would be in favor of detachment and have that be part of the motion. Anybody voting for the motion would that be an indication of their thoughts on that too, that they would be in favor of detachment also.
Okay, but you're still leaving in the motion that you you want the property to be deeded to the Espesens before it's detached? Or are you changing that?
For the purpose of combining the two properties, correct.
May I? Okay. At the last council.
I gotta,
Okay.
he amended his motion, so I gotta make sure, you're the one that always corrects me here. So,
And I'll do it
he's
again.
amending his motion. Scott, did you understand it, and are you okay with it?
I agree, I just want things to move forward.
Okay, all right,
Yes, I agree.
go ahead, Ed.
As I recall, I made the motion at the last council meeting to return the property to them. And so I think you're being redundant in your motion, Paul, because we've already voted to return the property to them, along with those other points that were included in that motion.
Well, they're not, I don't think they're as concerned about that, is if they accept the property back, they're worried that we will not detach.
I understand that, and we did not discuss detachment
Right, so
at
that's,
that council meeting.
that's,
All I'm saying is I think part of your motion is redundant, because
Well-
we've already agreed to return the property to them.
the purpose of my motion is to stipulate that the property be deeded before the request for detachment. And I don't think that specifically was discussed last meeting.
Okay? Well, that clarifies it.
Well, I thought that's what, yeah. So, Paul, would you say the motion one more time, and then Eric, I'll let you talk, sorry.
Okay, so I would like to see the property deeded to Kari and Russ prior to any action or request for detachment. And the city pay for anything that needs to be done as far as survey work, and also stipulate that a vote in favor of this motion indicates that a council person is in favor of the eventual detachment of the property.
Okay, and Scott, you still understand it as that?
I agree.
And you're okay with that? So we have a motion and a second. Discussion, Eric?
I just want to make sure for voting in favor of this motion, are we limiting them in the discussion they want to have with their attorney? I just want to, are we is it limiting them?
Yes. Yes.
Well, this is a motion to have staff move forward on this under those guidelines. It's not a motion to detach or necessarily, we're not approving, I don't believe we're not approving the deeding over, but we're just allowing staff to move forward with those guidelines, and then a vote will be taken later on the actual.
Okay, and if I don't see a hand, I'm going to assume that they're okay with this motion. I don't want to limit them because they just said we
Well,
just agree.
You understand the motion, so if you vote in favor of that,
Okay.
they're asking, the motion says that it would be deeded to them before the request for detachment. That's what the motion says, along with the rest of it that says that we agree that we'll detach the property. So if you're not in favor of that, you can vote no. Okay? If you're in favor of it, you vote aye. Any other discussion? Paul Hagan.
Are we all comfortable with the combined motion where saying that we are in favor of detachment and all, I mean, shouldn't that be two separate motions or two separate votes? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think what we're getting around to is that they want to be assured that the council is okay with this. given with what is before us, I think the council is. There are some unknowns here. We don't know what's going to happen once that notice of intent to detach hits the paper. Maybe there's going to be a whole bunch of people who send letters and want to have a hearing before there's even a petition. You don't know that. And not knowing that, the city can't guarantee that they're going to vote on the ordinance, because that would be illegal for anyone to say, I guarantee that I will do it, without knowing everything that could go before we even get to that. That hearing on the ordinance might not be for another 45 days or more. So all we're doing is assuring them that we expect to support this petition, but if things happen, we don't know what's going to happen. That's all I'm
Right.
saying. Right.
And I think that's how I understand the motion.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the motion says that if we vote yes, we support detachment.
It's an indication at this time that you support it. If something happens like Attorney Hart is suggesting, that, you know, that would probably have an effect on our eventual vote on it. But at this time, with the information we have, a vote for this motion would indicate that you're supportive of detachment.
I get what you're saying, Paul, but I really think that we got to have the public hearing, you know, when the request is a detachment. And so the citizens are protected here, I believe.
I just am uncomfortable voting for something and saying that I'm going to support something without the process being completely done.
Okay. Okay, again, that's your prerogative, and you have that yes or no vote that you can make. Any other discussion on this? Okay, so, again, this was a motion by Mayo and second by Prochatsky. We'll have Sandy take the roll.
Dave Peterson. Paul Hagan.
No.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Lori Chestnut.
No.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Paul Mayo.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
No.
Scott Prochatsky.
Aye.
And Mary Fair.
No.
5 ayes and 4 noes. Motion carried.
Okay. All right. Okay, so again, I think Attorney Hart has opened up Russ and Kari to you to ask that that you meet with them if you feel that you need, obviously, if you need your attorney there along with that. I think that's something that John has offered up to discuss how the process is going to work forward here. Okay? Thank you. Let's move on then. We have those 2 ordinances that we just had public hearings on. This is under new business. We have ordinance number 0317. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 10 of the public nuisance. That is on page 67 through 70. Instead of reading the whole thing, I would ask that Brennan, if you could just summarize this again for us, since that we're in the public hearing part of this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This item's on page 67. Again, this is amending Chapter 10 of the public nuisances for noxious weeds and maintenance of vegetation. It's really to clarify and clean up some of our existing or old ordinances as it relates to how we provide code compliance and code enforcement for developed and undeveloped properties within the city for length of grass and noxious weeds on properties. There was some discrepancies in the past and how that was regulated, so we are cleaning up those instances. And then in addition to this, we've had requests over the years by landowners to plant natural landscapes within their on their properties, and we didn't have any type of regulations or plans in place for that. It was a code compliance issue previously, as we were citing individuals for long grass or noxious weeds. So this ordinance provides the guidelines and requirements that an individual seeking to plant natural grass or gardens within their property, what they would be required to do, which would require approval from the Public Works Director along with my department as well.
Okay, and this is the first reading. It's been posted. If you hear anything on this from the public, obviously, if you want to share that in the future before we vote on this at the next meeting, let us know. If you hear anything ahead of time and you need further clarification, you can always ask Brennan to explain a little bit more, or send the discussion his direction so that we can make sure that everybody fully understands what this means. So again, we'll vote on this at our October 17th meeting. Okay, next then we have ordinance number 0417. This is dealing with the Riverfront District zoning change here. And this is also the first reading. And again, Brennan, if you could just summarize, since we're in council now.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This item is on page 71. This is a culmination of about 4 or 5 months worth of work with the public and the business owners of the downtown, along with the design review team and the plan commission, to create the ability or the opportunity for residential on the first floor of properties within a certain area of the downtown. As many of you are aware, we're unique in our community that we have almost 2, kind of main streets. With the topography, we have Main Street, and then we also have what is with Cooper Street. And there has been a desire to permit the ability or opportunity to have some residential on the first floor due to the fact of the Cooper Street elevation, the topography of the properties. So over the last several months, we've worked with the Plan Commission and everyone else to come up with what we felt was the best direction moving forward, and that was the creation of the B7 Riverfront District. And outlined in here is 2 different scenarios of permitting the live-work type of development and uses that some individuals and business owners in the downtown are seeking to do. Again, it's been, I think, thoroughly reviewed by the public and the Plan Commission, and overall, I think it's a good ordinance that we can move forward with, and hopefully will attract some new business opportunities to the downtown area. The area, again, mainly in focus is East Main Street, towards the river, North Fulton, towards the river, that sector, because of the topography. This is not, at this time, was not intended to be on the west side of Main Street or anything else. It's only for the area that has basically 2 road frontages.
Just one quick correction there. East Fulton Street.
North.
To
Correct.
the north.
Yep.
Right, okay. You said East Main Street. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Any other comments on this ordinance? Again, this has been posted. This is the first reading of this. We had the public hearing beforehand here. We did not, we had a few comments in favor. We did not have any testimony in opposition, but if you do hear anything, certainly let staff know, and we'll discuss that. Mary?
I just have a question about the first reading. Apparently, then we do a second reading and then we vote. Is there any way to make a motion to
There is.
opt out of the second reading and vote tonight?
You can vote to, tell me how we do this again, I forgot.
Vote to suspend the rules?
Yeah, we can suspend the rules. Okay, so we can vote to suspend the rules that we need a second reading. And then we can, and then after that, then you can make a motion to approve that. So if you would like.
So I would like to make a motion that we suspend the rule of a second reading on ordinance,
0417.
that ordinance, yes.
Okay. All right, we have a
I'll
motion.
second. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Fair, second by Chestnut, that we, tell me again, I'm sorry. Suspend the rules for the second reading of ordinance number 0417. We haven't done this in a while, but you can certainly do that. Any discussion? Dave?
Then that would sound to me like we're going back to what we just did, that you don't give the public a chance to respond now.
We did give the public chance tonight with the public hearing.
Yes.
This would give them additional time once they heard the public hearing, and also if they're watching tonight, to discuss that. Mary, maybe you want to touch on why you believe the rule should be suspended? You don't have to if you don't want to, but.
I just believe that it's been a long time for this ordinance to get amended, and I think the Walters have been very patient. I think we just need to move it along.
Paul Hagan?
Generally, suspension of the rules is for instances where there's some other consideration which would dictate a emergency or urgency in the matter. So if there is an urgency in this particular matter, then it would be appropriate to suspend the rules. Otherwise, it may not be.
Yeah, I don't, John, can you speak to that, John? Does it have to, as he stated?
I don't know if it has to do anything, but it seems to me that it would be a poor habit to get into, to start this kind of a thing just because. 2 weeks isn't very long. I appreciate last year or 2 years, whenever it was, when we had a month between meetings, sometimes it was very appropriate for particular reasons and with various things that were imminent, but another 2 weeks is probably not going to set the Walters back, particularly knowing that there has been no objection and that come the 17th of October, they're going to be able to do what they can do. I'm just saying that they have appreciated what we've done. There's been a lot of study to put this together. This isn't an amendment of an ordinance. It's almost a creation of a whole new ordinance, and it would seem to me that haste in this would be a little inappropriate.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments? Okay. Understanding that, Mary and Laurie, you're still okay with the motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and vote to suspend the rules for the second reading of ordinance number 0417. Sandy will take roll.
Alan Keeland,
No.
Mary Fair,
Yes.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
No.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
No.
Paul Mayo,
No.
Paul Hagan,
No.
and Laurie Chestnut.
Aye.
4 ayes and 5 noes. Motion denied.
Okay, so we will move forward then. The second reading will be at the October 17th meeting, and that's when we will vote on that ordinance at that time. Okay, let's move on then. We got a Main Street Design Directive, and the lights are coming on, so I better move a little. And that's Brennan.
This will be a tag team with Justin this evening as well. But this item starts on page 76 of your packet. We'll try to move hopefully quickly through these. But at the last council meeting, we had Randy Sanford here from SEH to provide the council with an update on where we're at right now with the Main Street redesign. Right now, we're closer to getting the 30% plans done, but there's a couple challenges that we've come up against that we are seeking some guidance from the council on as to what direction to move forward, along with some recommendations from our consultant for some pilot programs that we want to implement here for about a month period to gauge whether or not the traffic patterns change and what effect that may or may not have. So within your packet on page 76, I've outlined the 3 design directives that we are seeking this evening from the council for consideration. The first one, and I'm kind of just going to go down each one and kind of flip back through pages, but the first one is the pilot program for a four-way signalized intersection to a proposed four-way stop. And what that means is currently right now this is Badger Street and this is Main Street. It is currently signalized And what we are proposing to do is actually to turn the signalized intersection to flashing red to mimic a stop and go light or stop sign scenario. It is the consultant's belief that, one, from a traffic calming standpoint, it would help reduce some of the potential hazardous turning movements that we have here. We've done some traffic study, and either scenario, it does not. The intersections don't warrant the need to have the signalized intersection. Again, they were here over the years. But what we would like to do is do a pilot program where we turn not only this intersection, but also the intersection at Fulton and Main Street to flash in red for about 1 month. Again, that would replicate a stop and go scenario. And we want to study that to see how the traffic actually moves through the intersection and everything else. This isn't unprecedented. The city actually has done this previously in 2 locations, one over by School Street, and then another scenario over by Churchill Street where actually the signals were taken out completely and gone to a stop sign scenario. So we want to test this theory to see whether or not it would be beneficial for the design of Main Street for the future. With that, the second directive that we're also looking at this evening is to propose the elimination of the right turn lane on Badger Street onto Main Street for a 1-month period, in the same scenario of the right turn lane from Fulton Street onto Main Street, putting up a temporary barrier, whether that's cones or some barriers that would prohibit right turns freely at those 2 intersections. This intersection, especially throughout the last 2 years that we've studied this, has seen a significant amount of a conversation regarding the free right turn movement that's out there right now, how it is dangerous. A lot of drivers don't look when making that free right turn. We actually had conversations with John today about some of his times crossing that intersection. And again, what we're proposing to do is we'd like to do a pilot program. This is coming with the direction from the consultants to do a pilot program for 1 month to eliminate the right turn lane, again, to study how the traffic flows through the intersection, what that would actually do, and then make a determination from there whether or not it would be the right direction for the consultants to move forward in the future or not. By testing that theory as well, what you can see here on both intersections, and this gets to directive number 3, is where we're challenged right now is everyone saw 2 weeks ago, and as we've gone through the whole process, the pretty pictures that were created. One of the main focuses for this entire reconstruction of downtown and Main Street was to make this very pedestrian friendly, make it walkable and everything else. And the proposal and what was submitted to the state for the design alternative to maintain angle parking within the downtown had basically all the intersections with, very nice bump outs, which minimizes the distance that people have to cross. It's also traffic calming scenario. But the challenge that we have right now is some of the truck turning movements and the ability to have potentially some of the semis that are required here to make the turning movements into the downtown. So the third directive that we're looking at as well is to make an application to the state to move the existing national highway system route, which you see in yellow, which is the old, I believe, Highway 1054, looking at people that have lived here longer than I have, route that was through the city, and actually move it basically 1 block over to Washington Street, and that change would potentially minimize a lot of the potential truck traffic that currently makes the right turn movements on Main Street. Again, if we are successful in making that application, the bump outs that you see at these 2 intersections would actually be changed to be more of this type of nature, where you actually have a shorter distance between the to cross the street, and again, it would eliminate this long sweep that you have here right now being proposed. Again, what you see is what meets the traffic counts, it meets the design that the state requires, but we're seeking possible another design alternative to move the national highway system route map 1 block over to Washington Street. With that, we will most likely have to do some study of what happens at the intersection of Washington and Fulton Street, and working with the consultants, we would be looking to monitor that at the same time as hopefully doing the 2 pilot programs for the intersections of Fulton and Main and Badger and Main at that point. Justin has anything to fill in? Otherwise, I open it up for questions.
Brennan, when we put the stop signs there, I mean, if we decide to put the stop signs there, can the design of those two intersections include the ability to put in stoplights again? Just as we did on Royalton and Churchill.
Yep.
All the wiring and everything is in the ground already. And
we could certainly do that. I can tell you right now that each intersection is about $500,000. You know, looking
for
at
the wiring.
For the wiring, for the light, is it 250 or 500? It's 250. Sorry. Each intersection is approximately $250,000 to wire up and put the lights in. So again, we would see some. If we were to go to a stop sign per alternative, we would certainly make those potential improvements in there in the event that in the future the traffic warrants would require it to go back to that type of scenario.
Right, I'm not saying to put the lights in themselves,
No.
but just have the ability in the future without digging the street
Right.
up.
But the scenario of going to a stop sign option here has the ability of possibly saving the city funding through the state and federal portion of it as well, which that savings could go to other portions of the project or other amenities that we seek to put in the downtown.
All right.
Well, and don't forget, too, that this is just a pilot program. I mean, we might, after a month's time, we might not like the idea, and we might be looking at just street lights anyways. So it's good to have that discussion, but it might not to be had either. Steve, go ahead.
My question was, are we going to be doing this study in just a few weeks or months? Because the traffic flow isn't the way it would be normally because of Lake Street. The flow is really quite different right now because of Lake Street. And if we did a study right at this time, the flow's not the same.
Well, we'll probably get it set up. I mean, at the soonest, we could get it set up by the end of the week. We can hold off. Lake Street should be done within a few weeks for sure, and things will go back to normal. So I agree that the patterns have changed downtown a little bit because of Lake Street, but I think the idea is to get this pilot study in and see how traffic reacts to it before the snow falls, for sure, because we don't want to be messing around with traffic control with that. But so we have a little bit of wiggle room. I think if we delayed the pilot study a few weeks, we could get it done, say mid-October to mid-November, so we'd have that time frame to work it in.
I think Paul Hagan told me the snow was going to be late this year.
Scott, go ahead.
I'll remember that.
Regarding the study, is that we're going to have to contract with somebody to study the traffic patterns now, or are we going to do it ourselves? Or?
It's going to be a combination between ourselves and part of SCH's existing contract that's already there.
Okay.
Chief?
Mayor,
I
I
was
got a
wondering when you were
question.
going to weigh in.
That intersection of Washington and Fulton Street is very dangerous to cross already. And is there going to be any changes on Fulton Street where Farmers State Bank is so that those vehicles can get across? Because at any given time, there may be 3-4 vehicles that are backed up that are trying to get through that intersection.
And by, your point is, if
Well-
there's a four-way stop, it's going to be more difficult for people to cross?
Well, no, I'm just wondering, is there going to be a 4-way stop at Fulton and Washington Street? Because as of right now, the way everything exists, it's very dangerous to cross through there, through that intersection to get onto Washington Street by the paint store, onto Fulton Street if you are turning left.
That is, as you would say, is probably one of our most dangerous intersections.
It is. My office is right outside that.
Yeah.
I get to see it all day long.
Yeah, right.
I have that same concern as well, Mayor. So it's a very good point you brought up there, Brian. But it'll be studied with this pilot study. I'm not 100% sure that a 4-way stop on Fulton and Main and Fulton and Badger is the best case. That's why we're doing this pilot. I kind of like the idea of having the signals because it allows the through traffic. However, it's a recommendation from these consultants bringing this forward. So that's why we're doing this pilot study to see how this traffic reacts. And we'll see how it reacts down by Washington Street, and that will be an indicator if additional improvements will be needed down by Washington and Fulton Street.
So the answer to Chief's question now is, we're not doing anything with that intersection right now.
We have no plans for that right now, but we'll see from this pilot study. I mean, it might throw up a bunch of red flags, but it's better to figure that out now rather than see it after our $5 million road's been built, and then we're sitting there saying, now what?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we need to find out these issues now, and that's the reason for the study.
Sure. Get it? Paul Hagan.
When you do the study and you have the flashing red lights, some people, such as myself, would think that there's the other way is
Yellow.
flashing yellow light. So will there be some sort of signage such as four-way stop or something like that, where it to reduce confusion about that?
We have the folding stop signs on all these signals, so we'll throw them down. We're planning on advertising quite extensively, city newsletter, newspaper, radio, of course.
You get people from out of town, they may say, they may think that it's a yellow-red scenario.
We'll put down the folding stop signs. Those are on all the signals, so.
We also do, as part of this, do intend to have some public signage out there. We plan on doing a survey very similar to when we did the pilot program for the back and angle parking. We'll have a survey so people can comment, and we'll have A-frames out there on the road as well, so people can, so it's visible as well, that there's an opportunity for people to comment on the pilot program as well.
Laura, you had a question?
Should Washington and Fulton become a disaster area with trying that, would you be able to stop and go back to just what it was in the middle of the time period that you're going to have the month? I mean, that is such a bad intersection for pedestrians and cars and anything.
Well, we can stop the pilot study at any time, certainly. I'm not sure what that answer is for the National Highway System truck route, if that's going to be submitted immediately. I'm not 100% sure on that.
I think we were looking to at least submit it to see whether or not there's consideration for them to move it.
Okay. Even with watching the trucks turn right onto Washington, they have a difficult time doing that. There's not enough room. You look at, there's just not enough room. If there's a truck over here and one coming this way, I've seen traffic just stopped trying to make room for one so that they could somehow.
I mean, we almost have the same situation even at the Main Street intersection
Right, exactly.
too. So, in some regards, I do believe that I do agree with Brian that you know, the traffic when it's a four-way signalized intersection the way it is right now, I think it's actually more hazardous for people trying to get onto Fulton Street from Washington because the fact is you have continuous flow of traffic. Whereas I believe, you know, through the studies that if we go to the four-way stop sign scenario, the traffic's actually going to be less. It's going to calm it down, which then I think is going to provide the, you know, very similar to what happens here on Main Street. When it's red, people are going to stop, hopefully at the intersection, which will allow people to get out as well. So, again, it's something that we're going to study and take a look at.
I think we have to think of this semi-traffic that we have and the truck traffic that goes through there because that just.
Well, we have no choice
I
on
know.
the truck traffic.
Yeah.
No.
There already is a route, and we can't do anything about it. We can try and change the route, which is what we're trying to do. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Lori.
it's
It is
just
bad
so
up there.
dangerous there.
Mayor, to your point, that is part of the reason why we're looking at these different pilot programs and options is to figure out what is the best route for truck traffic through the city as a whole. Again, if the intent was to make this as pedestrian friendly as possible, then some of the current design criteria that we have right now with these sweeping right turns don't provide that. You know, again, the goal of trying to have these bump outs to minimize, you know, to slow down the traffic and minimize the crossing distance of people having to cross, we're not achieving that right now. So we need to do these pilot programs to see, you know, what the potential options are for us to reroute some of the truck traffic around here and provide, you know, the other scenarios, if we are successful or that's the direction that we want to go, we still need to provide for delivery zones or truck drop-offs and everything else within the downtown area. It's just a matter of how those trucks get through Main Street or if the deliveries are going to be on the side roads. You know, those are things we still have to study in further detail, but
I think looking at pedestrian traffic too, in most other towns that I go to, when a pedestrian is in the intersection, the cars stop or they're fined. And here, we certainly don't have that. People have no respect for people crossing the streets.
Peg.
I just wanted to say that that intersection that is Washington Street and not Union, and Badger is a really, it's a two-way kind of stop. It's not a four-way stop, and it's really dangerous as you inch out trying to figure out if somebody's going to be barreling down. So that's a scary intersection as well as that Washington Street, Badger Street.
Where you have the free left turn. It's actually a three-way stop there?
Yeah.
No, it's three-way. It's a three-way stop, but yeah.
Three-way stop.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, that would be discussion to have. I think trucks turning on from Washington onto Badger, that could be an issue too. So, I mean, we're gonna find all this out when we do this, so. That's why you do a pilot, to find out if it's going to work. And heck, we agreed to do back-in parking in this town. We ought to be able to agree to something like this, just to see what happens.
That was a mess.
I would think. I mean, I'm not all on board on this either, quite honestly, but because I'm so used to the way it was before, but I don't think it hurts for us to see what happens here, if we know it's just a limited time.
I think that follows with our due diligence we've been doing through this whole Main Street project. We've really made sure we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's with the public and doing our studies. So I think this is a good idea. This is just another part of it.
Mayor, do we need a motion here on this?
We do. I think what we're asking for, and let's make sure that we understand it though, the motion, as I understand it, is that we're going to do a pilot program for four-way stops at Main and Fulton, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just a pilot program. We're going to do a temporary removal of the right turn lane on Fulton Street going east on Main there, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then Badger Street going west. The right turn on Badger Street onto Main.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also the four-way stop at Badger and
Yeah,
Main
I'm
Street
sorry.
as well.
And Badger and Main Street would also be a four-way stop. Those are all temporary. The other one is to, and maybe you want to take this one as a separate, but the other one is to request to modify the national highway system. If we get that,
It's more or less, we just want to see whether or not the state would be willing to do it, whether or not we accept it long-term. We just at least want to potentially start that process to say, hey, we want to get the state's idea of whether or not this would be an acceptable alternative. Doesn't mean that we're committing to it, but we just want to start the process.
okay, so we're not asking at this time that truck traffic be
Not
changed to
officially.
Washington
No.
Street. Okay, you're just asking that you can request
Correct.
the change. Okay, so I think we're okay with all three motions, but.
Right,
up to you.
I would like to move to proceed as you just described, Mayor.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayo, second by Hagan, that we approve of the three requests that are coming from Brennan and Justin. Any discussion? Let's make sure we know the date now so we can get it out to the public. When are we going to start this? I mean, it doesn't, if we start it this week and we just go a little longer, does it matter? You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
We
So
would
instead
like
of
to
going
at
a month, go 6 weeks or something like that?
We do need to get some signage prepared and the survey up to date. I would hope, as the newspaper's here this evening, we can get an article as quickly as possible next week in there as well.
Well, give us a date that you think it's going to start, so.
I would say that we're comfortable with probably the week of the 16th. Monday the 16th, right?
Okay, so 2 weeks
Yep.
from now. Okay,
Basically.
all right? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we have a tower and land lease agreement between the city of Waupaca and the Waupaca Online and Waupaca County. Josh is here to tell us what that means.
Okay, we're getting ready to start work on the Waupaca Online expansion project, and the first phase of that project we want to do is to get onto some existing structures, and we're looking to get onto two Waupaca County-owned towers to kick this off, and those would be the towers in Fremont and the one up by Marion. Henry and I have been meeting with county staff to review a lease agreement they proposed, and we've made some changes. Staff on both sides is content with what's on there, and we're at the point where we need approval. This agreement is for a 2-year term. We've worked out tiered pricing with them that builds up at certain month thresholds during the 2 years to allow us to ease into the project without a huge financial burden on day one, and help them meet kind of what they think is a fair lease agreement. We would have a 60-day out at any time during the agreement, so if for some reason something changes with the project, something's not working out, we're not tied into something long-term. And I'm asking for approval on these tonight, but the agreements do not fully execute until the first day of the month that we actually locate the equipment on the tower. We're looking to get onto the Marion one pretty quick here. Fremont might be a month or two out, depending upon when we get some other things worked out. So that's kind of the bullet points on these agreements. A lot of the other items in here is just kind of standard language that you'd see in a tower agreement, and then Waupaca County has some language in here, since these are emergency communication towers, to make sure if there's any interference or any adverse effects from our equipment that, that gets taken care of right away. Any questions?
How was the signal getting to Marion?
We're looking to hop from the Shambo Water Tower up to Marion.
Oh.
On paper, that looks pretty promising.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
That's part of why we put in this tiered pricing on here. It's $50 a month. If we get up there, put our stuff in, and find out it's not working, it's only $50 a month we're out. The backup plan is the new tower we're going to build at the process and transfer facility. So if for some reason this link from Shambo to Marion doesn't work, although it's looking promising, we'd go from Shambo to the PTF to Marion, and the paths on that all look good as well.
Because it's all line of sight.
Yep. And from the top of the Shambo Water Tower, I can physically see another communications tower that's located about 2.5 miles south of the one we're going on. The county tower at Marion, I think it's just too far to physically see the distance.
You were up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been studying this. We feel good about it.
Do they have like a drone or something you can use?
Well, we could probably get a drone before the end of the year.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Okay, so this is actually, remember, this is part of the grant that we received from the state of Wisconsin. The idea is to expand Waupaca Online into areas in Waupaca County that are not covered by other, like Charter or AT&T or whatever, where people cannot get online services and stuff like that, so, or internet services. So this, obviously, we have to have towers to be able to bring that signal to them. So this is part of that deal. And this monies that we're going to be using to pay for that is not taxpayer monies. This is coming out of the enterprise fund, the Waupaca Online Fund. So they have to generate revenues to pay for this. Again, so it's not taxpayer money that's doing this. Okay? If you agree with this, then we would need a motion to approve.
I would move. I'll second.
Motion by Olson, second by Keelan, that we approve of the locations for the towers. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Paul Hagan, Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
and Dave Peterson. 9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank you, Josh. Let's move on to City Hall Library Carpet Project 2017. Justin.
Thanks, Mayor. My memo can be seen on page 108 of the packet. Following that is some proposal numbers. So in the 2017 capital borrow plan, we had $10,000 set aside for the library workroom. And if you recall, we removed that room and several others from the 16 renovation project where we got carpeting in the rest of the building. So we met with Peg, we as in Russ Montgomery, myself, started talking about getting this project done. We started kind of evolved into, okay, what about all the remaining rooms? So we had a plan to do just that workroom, and then sat down and discussed with Kathy about the financials of possibly doing all the rooms. And she indicated that the office furniture project, which budgeted about $40,000 for this year, would be pushed back so that we would have enough borrowing capacity to allow for all the rooms that have not been carpeted yet, which would include the workroom from the library, the offices in the library youth area, the meeting rooms A and B across the hallway, and then also council chambers here. So we did some scrambling and got some proposals, requests sent out, and we received only two back. One from Stangy's here in Waupaca, and the other from Carpetland USA in Oshkosh. We had a couple companies that graciously bowed out. So the following my memo shows those proposals broken down per rooms. And how I'd like to structure this is basically get, well, I don't know if I need 3 separate actions, but basically 3 separate steps. What I would like to do is award Stangy's of Waupaca the library workroom, even though they are higher than Carpetland by about $900. The reason is they are local. The carpeting is in stock that we're going to put in there, and they can get it in maybe within the end of the month. Also, we've worked with them for the last year's project. They were very good to work with moving furniture around, getting the work done, and getting just being efficient with it. And that library workroom in the back has a lot of desks, a lot of material back there, and again, we're going to have a lot of coordination with whatever crew is going to be back there. So we have that comfort level with Stangy's to complete that room. So I'd like to propose that, and then if that is a go, then I'd like to propose awarding Carpetland with the remaining rooms for the amount listed there. For a total not to exceed, I could add it up for you for the remaining rooms. And then finally, I would like to get approval to get extra carpeting for maintenance. So it would be extra carpeting for the entire building. We'd have enough on hand so we could replace squares as they get worn out. And anticipating that to be about $2,500. Not really sure which vendor we would go with yet, because we received proposals that included all the labor, getting here, getting back. So we'd just be purchasing just the boxes and storing them for future use. So if you want me to recap that again, I will, Mayor.
Well, what's the dollar amount on extra carpet, I guess? Where is that again?
I just have that in my memo, roughly about $2,500 to get everything done. We're thinking it's going to be less than that, but that would for surely take care of it. We're thinking we could get it for about $2,000, $2,200, something like that. Make sure we have enough for the future.
Any other questions? I got one more. I want to know, the library workroom, is that going to be the same carpet that's in the rest of the upstairs? Is that kind of the concept?
Yeah, the workroom will be the same color that's in the upstairs library. The youth offices will be the same color as the youth library, so that's that tin gray. Upstairs has a darker blue, and then council chambers would be in the lower meeting rooms would be similar to what's up City Hall, which is a lighter blue.
And you've discussed splitting this, that's why you asked for different bids, right? Because
Yeah.
they know that they could end up with one of these or none of these.
Yeah, well,
all of
originally
them.
it was just, we got proposals just for the library workroom. So that work was submitted for just that room. And then we added on, after discussing with Kathy, if we could fit all this within the borrow plan. She believes that we can, so that's why we move forward with this, so. So just to reiterate, the 2017 capital plan just had the 10,000 for the workroom. But we're looking to do, just to finish up everything now, with council approval, of course.
So the total, Justin, is 27,100 with your extra carpet squares? Oh, excuse me.
No.
No, it's not. It's
No, it's not,
another.
no.
It's 28,000.
Well, I think he's asking for a separate
Right.
motion, so, too.
But the overall cost.
Sure. Brennan?
I guess 2 questions. One, are we looking at doing this year yet?
The library workroom would be done for sure this year. The remaining rooms, we'd work that out, but we'd have a lead time with Carpetland USA because they don't have all this carpeting in stock. So we're thinking probably 6 weeks, probably to get the carpeting in, then work it out with the schedule of when they could get here. So, you know, possibly December, early January, that these other rooms would get done.
This is going to follow up to my follow-up question. I'm wondering if we can delay that a little bit. Josh and I met with an audio-visual company today for this room as part of the 2018 project proposal, and there might be the opportunity to add some new audio-video in here, which may require tearing up the carpet. So I would hate to
They're just squares.
be tearing up new carpet. So if we can maybe delay this room until we know what we potentially do in here, that'd be appreciative.
Sounds like you're gonna have quite a bit of time, though, before it does even happen. But yeah, point well taken. Kathy?
The total amount would be, if the $2,500 for extra squares, $28,111. If council wanted to, I would suggest, again, with the way the carpet proposals came in versus what was actually done, once they take stuff up, is to approve nothing more than $30,000 for the whole project. And you're still way under what we had in the budget for borrowing in 2017.
Kathy, can you say that total again?
Sure, it was $28,111. It was for the library workroom with the Stangy bid, the lower office rooms with Carpetland, and the meeting room and council chambers with Carpetland, and then adding $2,500 for extra squares.
Okay.
And I'm just saying to round it up to an even $30,000. I don't like to borrow for $111. So on a 5-year note, that just doesn't do anything for my debt proceeds.
Well, what are you gonna do with the rest if you don't need it,
Thank
though?
you.
I mean,
Well,
I don't.
there's we still have other projects that we still don't have Lake Street that could be finalized. If anything, that money would roll over then towards the 2018 projects, because it is borrowed funds. We would use that towards a project there.
I get all this, but I'm still looking at, okay, we're gonna pick Stangies and they're local, and I get it, but it's an extra $900. Now you're asking us to borrow another $1,900. You know, now we're up to $2,800 that we don't really need. So, I mean, and you're gonna ask for additional staff in about a half an hour here, and we're not gonna be able to afford it, and now we're doing this. So, I mean, I get that, but I'm also trying to be concerned about the dollars too here.
I have a question about the carpet in here. I don't know. It doesn't, it looks okay, but I haven't dug around in the corners, and so,
It doesn't look wore out.
yeah.
Well, this is actually, the carpeting that you're sitting on right now is newer carpeting within the last 15 years, 14, 15 years. The carpet out in the audience, which gets probably worn maybe a little bit more, but that's when the building was built, which was,
Okay.
yeah, 20-some years old. So you're looking at two different, so maybe, like you say, maybe we're saving money by not doing this if it matches what's out here. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
And I'm guessing that if we're going to be doing things with upgrading the sound and video and those things in this room, I personally feel we should hold off on recarpeting this room till we're done, till we know how the room's going to look. And that would eliminate quite a bit.
I'd almost tend to agree. It doesn't seem like it's a need in here, and if we're going to do some other construction in here, we could.
I'd rather pay
in the
people.
future, a few years, maybe even. This doesn't get constant traffic like the library does, so.
Justin, Carpetland, are they willing to move all this furniture and do all that?
No, pretty much the furniture moving's on us. So, and that's what it was, how it was performed last year. And the contract was that we would move everything around and they could just get to work. But what ended up happening is the crew actually did help move, and it was kind of like a team effort between Russ, the crew, myself, some other people, City Hall Library, all helped move with these carpet guys, even though they weren't supposed to. And that's why I said that we had a comfort level working with them and would prefer to see them with that back room again, because there is a lot of desks and materials back there, and everything's going to have to be shoved to one side, half the room, move it back the other way, the other half of the room. And we'd prefer to see it done sooner than later, that back room as well. So
We're not gonna make anything easy tonight, are we?
Well, you just look at, how much it costs everybody to move stuff, and
Well, you gotta be careful that you're going to assume that Sting is going to move those items. I'm not sure that their workers' comp policy probably covers them for moving furniture and stuff like that too, so.
well, in our request for proposals, we had that back workroom. We had a deadline on it. I'm trying to think. It might have been October 31st. It might have been that first week in November. But we put a deadline on it that we wanted to get it done soon. And we know Staney can hit that because they have the carpeting in stock.
Okay, so I think actually we would be probably better off, let's take a motion for the library workroom. Anybody want to make a motion for the library workroom?
I will move that we purchase carpet and service to lay the carpet through Stangy's for the library workroom.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Fair, a second by Chestnut, that we approve the contracting with Stangy's for the library workroom to an amount not to exceed $8,625.45. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Mary Fair.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Paul Mayo.
Aye.
And Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we got the lower office room. Anybody want to make a motion on the lower office rooms?
Move to approve.
Which one? Stinging or carpet line?
Carpet line.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mayo, second by Olson, that we approve the entering into a contract with Carpetland USA for the lower office rooms in an amount not to exceed $2,125.42. And next we have the meeting room A and B, and it looks like Carpetland combined those amounts, so I don't know.
You need to take a vote on that motion?
Should I vote on it?
No.
Well, why didn't I? Sandy will take the roll. Sandy will take the roll.
We'll do it. Scott Prochatsky.
Thank you.
Aye.
Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Mary Fair.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Dave Peterson. Steve Hackett.
Aye.
And Paul Mayo.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you, Paul. Meeting room A and B, Stangy's has an individual amount for that. Carpet Land combined the meeting room A and B in the council chambers. It's your choice here, obviously. Mary Farrett and Scott had suggested that we don't do the council chambers at this time. We could borrow for that and just not do it till we know that the project's done. Otherwise, you're gonna have to find out, either go with Stangy's with their amount for the meeting room A and B, or you're gonna have to find out from Carpet Land how much it would be for the meeting room A and B.
I think we're kind of in agreement that the council chambers doesn't need to be done at this time or in the near future. I don't know about meeting rooms A and B.
I think at this point, well, since it sounds like council chambers is off the project list, that's fine. If we can hold off on meeting room A and B for a short moment, I'd be okay with that at this point as well. A couple of the other places we asked, this was just too big of a project for them at this time. So if it's chunked up, we could probably get several more, at least one more bid that I know of, dividing it up even further into the future. So there's that benefit of holding off on both of the major areas, even though I know meeting room A and B would be something Peg really wants to get done now. If that was to be awarded to Carpet Land, we'd have to double back with them and tell them to split it up. They gave us one bid because it's the same color from this room and that room. That's why they combined it together.
Okay. And then we have, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the seams in meeting room A and B are starting to come up. The last time we had the carpet cleaned, the seams were coming up. I don't know if it's a trip hazard, but if the council decides to wait until January, I don't think it's really a big deal.
Okay. Yeah, it does need to be done, I agree. And those two rooms are used a lot, so I agree. Sooner or later, it's gonna have to be done.
Mayor, can we, presumably, they would have an amount per square foot broken out. Presumably, could we approve meeting room A and B based on that the amount per square foot not change from their combined bid?
Yeah.
Well,
That
we
way-
can, but if there's some variables that we don't know about, Justin would probably have to come back and we'd have to. But if you wanted to.
I mean, they should have just an amount per square foot and then just multiply by the two, and they should be able to split that out, I would think.
But we don't know that tonight.
No, can we wait till 2 weeks?
They didn't provide that in. They didn't provide a square foot
No, we didn't.
in their bid. No.
Well, and I think Justin's point too is that if he could get other bids, we might get
All right.
something.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, one other thing, do you still want the extra carpet? Discuss that tonight or wait?
Well, I guess it depends on the intention of the council for the entire building. If we're gonna carpet the entire building, then yes, I would like to get that recommendation or that approval tonight. If we're still kind of waffling on if certain rooms are gonna be done, well, then I would hold off a little bit longer because $2,500 was assuming the entire building as is. So take out a few of these rooms we don't do, we need less additional carpet squares, we'll need less. So, I
you
take
wanna
it though
hold-
now if you'd give it.
So, okay,
Does that include like the library color too?
It includes all the colors. Yep.
But not more of one or the other for
Well,
areas?
it's depending on, well, the library has more square footage on that first level, so we get a few extra of those boxes versus City Hall. However, the same color City Hall would be used here in the meeting room, so it might be a 50-50 split.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you would like, Justin said that he's okay if you'd like to get the extra carpet at this time. If not, we could wait and discuss that at a later time too. So I guess it's up to you. And we don't know who you would buy it from either.
Yeah.
Right, Justin?
Yeah, not at this point, no, because we're getting proposals to come here, rip out the old stuff, put in the new stuff. We need to get just a per box cost from all these vendors, and that's how we determine who we're getting that from.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, although we probably don't have to vote on it tonight because they probably still have all of this in stock yet. But the important part of paying extra money to get these squares versus rolled carpet is that you can just replace the squares and not the whole carpet. So if we don't have those squares to replace them, then we defeated the purpose of paying extra money for the squares versus the rolled. So this is a very important part of the whole process, is to have some extra squares. So, I mean, we can wait, as Justin said.
So I would move that we purchase the extra carpet, and maybe that should be all that I move.
Well, you need a dollar amount. Are you okay with the 2,500?
Not to
Not to
exceed
exceed
$2,500.
Okay.
And I'll second that too.
Okay, we have a motion by Fair, second by Chestnut, that we approve of the purchase of additional carpet squares, unknown vendor, for an amount not to exceed $2,500. Any discussion? Sandy, call the roll.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
and Paul Hagan.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Good. Justin, thanks. We have a application for a temporary Class B retailer's license for the Friends of Waupaca Parks for a polka dance 2017 to be held on November 10th, 2017. Aaron?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Smith. This is something that our staff is working on with the Friends of Waupaca Parks. Wanted to do something a little different on a Friday night. Sarah and actually Sandy have been working together on this. It would be from 5 to 7:30 p.m. Polka dance, nobody over or under the age of 21 would be allowed in the building for that time period. There is an admission fee of $5, $10. There's a little meal that comes with that if you pay that amount. And this request is just to serve beer out of the concession stand in the rec center. This has been done one time before. We did it through the Friends of Waupaca Parks. We had an adult volleyball tournament about 4 years ago. We did the same type of thing. So.
Okay, any questions? Motion?
I know this may come as a surprise, but I absolutely love polka music, and I would be happy to make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Hagan, second by Keelan, enthusiastically approving the temporary Class B license for the polka dance, which will be held on November 10th, 2017. Any discussion?
Paul, to see you dance the polka, it might be worth the price of admission.
Extra admission for you, Steve.
I gotta tell you though,
Put that on the posters.
beer and polka do go together.
Together.
Yeah.
I also hope that you listen to WILW on Sunday mornings. That's,
Okay. Any other discussion? Obviously, Alan likes polka too, so.
I can't stand it.
Ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Little comic relief.
Told you, it's not gonna be easy tonight here, so.
I know.
License report number 1385, this is an operator's license. Henry, anything
No?
we need to know there?
Just pending
So moved.
background checks? Yep.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Hackett, second. Perchatsky, that we approve of the operator's license report number 1385. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carried. Again, I think it's important, in case people are listening, this does not mean that the operator's license have been approved. The clerk still has to make sure that if they have any fines or owe the city any money, they have to pay those before they can get their operator's license. All right, next, we are going to go into closed session. This is a motion to convene into closed session in accordance with section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin State Statutes, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We need a motion to do that.
Move to convene in closed session.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Peterson, that we convene into closed session. Discussion. Sandy will call the roll.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
10 minutes.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
and Dave Peterson. 9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay.
Okay, we have
should know
a
that.
committee of the whole meeting. We're calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Peterson, Olson, Mayo, Hackett, Keelan, Chestnut, Perchatsky, Hagan, and Fair, Mayor Brian Smith, and staff. We have an agenda in front of you. It's just really one item to talk about personnel tonight. So we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hackett, second by Keelan, that we approve the agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Fiscal year 2018 budget. Henry, you're starting
Yes,
that?
sir, I'm going to set this up. As the mayor said, this is a topic is going to focus on personnel-related items in the budget. Because this is a committee of the whole format, our idea is to just have a discussion, get your feedback. There are no official decisions sought because it is a committee of the whole. It's more of a work session. And what we're trying to do is pull this all together. This is our last segment of our specific topics. And then our next budget meeting will be on November 7th, where we're going to pull all these elements together. That might be a fairly long meeting. That is after the council meeting next month. So I'll work with the department heads to make sure we don't have a lot on the regular agenda, because I'm thinking that budget meeting could be like the one we had last year. It might be a couple hours, so we'll probably think about bringing some refreshments for that. So Kathy's going to kick it off, talk about some items kind of in her bailiwick, and then I'm going to come in a little bit later. And then at the very end, there are a couple personnel requests that a couple departments are going to talk to you about. Kathy?
Personnel accounts for about 77% of your operating budget. So it's a major item within the budget in each department, as well as the funds. We do have a positive in that our health insurance premium increase is only 3% this year. The Horton Group did not have to go out to the market. We didn't have any plan changes. Wisconsin Counties Association Group Health Trust is the provider that we have. And we obviously are doing something right. We have obviously healthy employees. There are, I got from the Horton Group today, some of the other municipalities who have gotten double-digit increases in their health insurance. My former employer, the Village of Greendale, received a 20% health insurance premium increase. Shorewood, the Village of Shorewood was 23%. However, though, the city of South Milwaukee, which is with WCA Trust, also received only a 3.5% increase. They're a smaller group. So they're all over the board municipal-wise, but it has a lot to do with the age of your group and the amount of claims. And we did have the Horton Group in here earlier this year, early during the renewal process, in showing that we had a very good claim year this year. So that attributed to it. So with that 3% increase, I did hand out to you this handout on the board up on top. And to break it out is that we have a increase in the city share if we stay with the 90-10 employee premium share, like the WPPA police union, for all employees, that we would have a $17,211 increase in just our health insurance costs. This is broken down by the, reduced by the fact is that we do offer employees opt-out. If they have insurance through their spouse, they're able to receive a $3,900 opt-out payment instead of taking the health insurance. On a family plan in 2018, that saves the city $134,000 versus having them take a plan and not need to use it. One of the things that I did look at in trying to fund the $17,000 increase in the premium was to look at options, and also fit into the fact that we're looking at giving the employees a 1% increase. So this is the start of trying to make the numbers work as far as personnel is concerned. The other insurance policies that we have renewals with were dental, which is a voluntary employee plan. The employees will be having a 2% increase in premiums, but there's no budget impact because it is voluntary. Our short-term and long-term disability insurance has a 0% increase, as well as our voluntary vision plan. So those are up for renewal next year, and we'll see where we are with those policies. The short-term and long-term disability isn't a very high dollar amount. It's probably about $12,000 cost for long-term disability for all of the employees for the year. So there's not that much of a carrot there to drop it or not. Then we also have the next item, which is the change of carrier for patrol. I don't know if you want to do, can I do that after the 1%? I want to keep going on this. So the 1%, if we would look at the 1%, 1% for the for employees is going to cost the city about $50,000. If you figure in the yearly increases for the WPPA contracts for lifts for new officers, the change in the Wisconsin retirement rates, and Social Security on those wages. So we're looking across all employees to be about $50,000. If I take out the library, water and sewer funds, it's 41,000 for just the general fund. So I have 17,000 in health insurance. I have another 40,000 to give the employees 1% raise, and I have a levy limit of $14,000. That's all I can increase the levy. So what can I do? Well, Kathy gets creative. One of the things is that our opt-out for our health insurance is $3,900. And it's to give an employee towards what a single plan would be. So if the employee was on our policy just by themselves, it would cost us $6,100, almost $6,200 a year for health insurance for that employee. We instead tell them, we'll give you $3,900. Please don't take our $19,000 health insurance benefit, and we'll call it even. What I am proposing in this budget would be is to raise the opt-out, raise the carrot, to have more employees opt out of the health insurance. And I'm proposing that we would raise it to $5,000. It's still not as much as a single plan policy. However, it will help in generating $30,000 of revenue, of less costs into the general fund, because I have possible commitments of 5 employees in the general fund that would opt out of the health insurance. So now instead of saving the city $133,000 in insurance premiums, I'm now looking at $184,000 of insurance premiums if those same employees would take a family plan. So I'm looking at changing and recommending that we change the opt-out to $5,000. And this is kind of like what we did last year with the employees that were on the health insurance plan, and we went to the 90-10. Those employees received a reduced premium share and got about $800 last year in savings that they didn't have pay and deductions. So this year I'm giving some extra money to those who are opting out and saving me money on the health insurance. So kind of just going down and doing a quid pro quo for those employees. So that's how I'm looking at funding a 1% and the health insurance increase and getting 5 more employees to opt out. We have right now 2 that have decided to opt out for the next premium year. We have 2 that are possibles, and I think the library is going to have 1. So that I'm confident that we can get those 5 employees.
How do you guarantee that, Kathy? Do you have them sign something that says they're gonna opt out before we pass the budget? Because otherwise, we're giving more money out and it's not saving us.
We would have our open enrollment in November before the budget's passed.
And so you would know.
I would know for sure. And that those other 10 would remain. I've pretty much asked the department heads, is there anybody that's looking that would be willing to opt out? I'm looking, was actually trying to get more. But this would work in the scheme of things. If you were just looking like I am right now, just at the 14,000 in levy increase that we can do, and the savings that we have between the opt-outs and the health insurance, if you're looking at it just at that point in that scheme of things, I've made the budget balance. Now I have to look at the rest of the requests for the other 25% of the budget to make sure that additional costs can be absorbed either through their department or other cost savings measures within the general fund. So I'm still trying very hard to make sure, and I do have some departments that have contracted costs that are going up, but I think that between working with the departments and seeing where we land, we should be able to come in. I still do not have all of the numbers from the state yet. I am still on the holdout for the transportation aids, which is a major revenue source for the city as far as funding from the state. We're within $3,000 from last year for our shared revenues and expenditure restraint, but I think that the $3,000 is doable for catching up in other areas. But
I'd like to see that opt-out decision to be made after we know what the results are. You could certainly fit it into the budget both ways.
Yes.
But I'd certainly like to see that. I mean, if we end up with people doing the opposite, coming back on our insurance policy and end up costing us more money, that doesn't make sense.
No.
And I would also suggest that this would be a year-to-year decision and not a decision that continues forever, because each year could be a little bit different.
Well, and that's the same thing with the police department, that, you know, if you, or any of the departments, you have an opening in the library where you had an employee that was an employee plus one, which is about $12,000 for premium. And now you've hired somebody else and they're a family plan, it's $19,000. And that's the biggest volatility within the employee portion of benefits, is that, you know, one year my husband's insurance is really good, I'm going to opt out. The next year he's got a major change in it, and now I'm opting in. So we've had some employees who have played that based on how their insurance for their spouse is doing, and whoever gets whatever makes sense to them as far as costs. I won't name names. It's very hard to budget, and it's even hard to budget even during the year, because you can set it that I have this employee at a single plan, he's retired, he's left, now I have a new employee, which is what we have in the police department. We had a single plan leave, and we're replaced with somebody who has a family plan. And that does stuff to that budget during the year. But that's where the departments have to make adjustments going forward, and if they can, depending on when they retire or leave, that we have that capability. The other one is at the end of the year, it's still going to run through the income statement and go into fund balance. So whether I'm short or not within that department, it's going to depend on my revenues coming in and everybody else's expenses. Can we do that? So that's pretty much what
Okay.
I have
Just so
for that.
we're on the same page.
I don't have a problem with that. We can look at it each year, pretty much knowing what the savings can be. And it might be one of those where depending on where our premiums go next year. We don't know where the feds are going with health care. You could see a bad year this year and see exposures that warrant a double digit, but we hope that our employees and their families stay very healthy and keep our costs down. So the next item is the change of, it's not carrier, it's more of a provider for the patrol union and their post-employment health insurance or post-employment health program. Right now, the WPPA union is currently with Nationwide in a trust agreement that was set up through WPPA to do a voluntary employee health plan. We put in $240 per year for each of the patrol officers for health insurance when they retire or leave. And that they have found out that the plan costs, that monthly service fee on their investment is eating away at those dollars. So if somebody's been in it and now isn't, that money goes, which isn't very much, goes very, very fast in plan fee costs. Like any mutual fund, that's usually the biggest cost if you're not doing anything, if it's not being used. So we've proposed to the union as part of some of the other items with sick leave and sick leave payouts was that there is a product out there with North Shore Bank. It's another post-employment health plan. It is a trust HRA, which is a health reimbursement account. It's a trust that the city sets up through North Shore Bank, and the sick payout totally goes into that HRA account. There are no taxes. It's all pre-tax, pre-Social Security tax, but it can only be used for health-related items, premiums for insurance, doctor's visits, co-pays for other insurance, that kind of thing. Pretty much like another flex spending account. The spouse and any qualified dependents, and that's any dependent that is on the employee's income tax form, are eligible to use those dollars. It is available after employment or retirement. You don't have to retire, you just have to break employment, and you are able to use that money for health-related items. If the employee is deceased before the money is used up, the spouse and any dependents get to use the remaining balance. Also, if they have no spouse or dependents, what happens is the money stays in the trust and is reallocated to all of the employees' accounts that are in that trust. So let's say Bob has $40,000 he doesn't use. Everything, he uses everything about 10,000 would get allocated equally to all of the remaining members in the plan, any other employees in the plan. So if I have an account in that plan, it would get allocated to that. The employee gets full dollars, so if he retires, Bob retires with a $40,000 payout, he gets that $40,000 in that account. He doesn't pay Social Security. We don't pay Social Security. There is no federal taxes, no state taxes. So it's a full dollar amount that that employee gets to use. It also will, this account would remove from our audit the IRS conflict that we have in our employee handbook, where we give the option to the employee to either take it in cash or use it for health insurance. There will not be that option. They will have it for health insurance. That's it. Their sick leave will not be an option to do that. So we're looking at setting something up with the police union to look at this and bring it to council to set up this trust by the end of the year if they're agreeable. One of the things would be is, and then we would set this up going forward for all of the employees for the health, for the sick leave payouts. So I think that's it, unless somebody has any questions.
So you were just talking, when you were just talking now, you were just talking about the police.
Just the police union. They do not want their $240 a year to continue to go into nationwide. They have come to us, and they have sat in with North Shore Bank presentations, and they feel that their members would be more than willing to go with it.
Okay, and you're telling me that what they're doing with that, we're doing with that money right now does not comply with the IRS
Correct.
rules where it's, right now it's taxable.
Right now, it's fully taxed. If somebody gets a $40,000 payout, I take Social Security, FICA, we pay our share of FICA on it, and state and federal taxes. If the employee decides to take that $40,000 and continue on our health insurance plan, that is taxed.
It's taxed no matter what.
Taxed no matter what.
Okay, now, if they don't agree to put it into some kind of HRA, HSA type thing, and use it for medical purposes only, then that affects what we're gonna try and do with our other employees.
Correct.
Because it's all or none,
Correct.
right? So all employees have to agree to put it and use it for health purposes, only for it to not be taxable.
Correct.
Now, we can control what the other employees do, but we cannot control what the union does.
Right.
Except through negotiations.
So negotiations, and talking to the police union rep, they seem to be that they want to get out of the nationwide, and the only way they can get out of the nationwide agreement, the trust, is for us, because we're the ones that set up the nationwide trust. We are working with North Shore Bank in that we're going to try and move that money out of that trust if we put this trust together, in that they won't lose it in fees. So we're working on that.
Okay, great.
May I add something, Kathy? Mayor, you mentioned the other employees, and I think one of the things we've talked with internally, we've had a couple employee meetings, is this whole idea of this option, cash versus this money being used for health insurance once they terminate employment. And there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes. I want to thank Kathy because she's had some connections in her previous life and some other organizations. And basically what's happening now with the choice, an employee realizes about a 40% less of a benefit because we give them the choice of a cash payout. So we queried our employees. I think we spent a number of months educating them, and they're okay if council says no cash payouts. They cease. You fix a problem with a gig in our audit every year, and our employees get a full value of that benefit. And again, if you have an heir, or beneficiary, I should say,
No, just
heir,
independent.
spouse independent, who, and she talked about it being on your income tax, then you can pass that money along. Now, you mentioned the $40,000. If I got to go out and buy health insurance for Lorinda and I, that's $1,000 a month, easy. So that 40 grand doesn't last too long. And the chances of an employee, that single employee, because that's the person that's going to be impacted by this change if you go with it, is that money doesn't go that long, and the chances of them passing away before they use their benefit is highly unlikely, but it could happen. And so, as Kathy said, that money would go back into the communal pot, if you would, and divvied up among the other people in the plan. So one of the policy decisions going forward for you would be to say no more cash payout, and we'd have to change the handout. And then the other piece of this is another decision. Right now, if employees are capped for their sick leave, they get $50 a day for that, and we pay that, I think, the first payroll of each new year. Well, that money's taxed. So I don't take any days in a year. I get $600 gross, and then all the taxes come off. If council supports the change to move to this new vehicle, I don't know the proper term, PEP plan, all our employees would be included in that, along with the police union. And that $50 a day would also go into this program, but the employee can only use it when they terminate employment with the city. Leave employment, retire. And so they get, again, the full value of that $600 would be deposited. It's no extra money to the city, but we save money, right? Because we're not paying taxes on it. So that would be the other piece of it.
Henry, I guess maybe I read something in here that I read that it says, at least in your agenda here, it says available only at the time of being Wisconsin retirement eligible.
No, that's
so
that's sick payout. That's a little bit different than the $50 a day.
She's talking about sick pay here. So what are you trying to do? I'm not sure what you're trying to do then here.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is set up a vehicle where the employees get the full benefit of their sick leave payouts instead of paying income taxes.
So you're talking only about their sick leave payout that year? You're not talking about the total that's accumulated over all the years? You two are really confusing me, and I thought I had this figured out, all right? Well, let's get it straight here so I can understand.
Well, why don't we address...
I mean, you've already dragged your feet about 2 months on this. I asked for this to be done 2 months ago, and now we're into the budget, and we still don't know what we're going to do for next year on the sick leave.
Well, in your packet is the section of the handbook. All right, and when we updated the handbook a year ago, council wanted to make some changes on how we handle sick leave payout. Affectionately known as the Edelbeck rule, okay? Because that's what really precipitated it. And so we're coming to you to say, number one, don't give the option of a cash payout. But if you look at the handbook, that second schedule, if you look there, is for employees hired after the adoption of the handbook. And so we tightened up the schedule, and you don't get your payout unless you're retirement eligible. But what council did is on that top schedule, you grandfathered employees hired before September 20, 2016. So in that scenario, there would still be an employee that would have potentially 16 plus years that would get 100%. But what we're suggesting is with no cash payout, whatever that amount is, goes into this new vehicle, this new account that they can't use unless they leave employment with the city, whether it's retirement. I guess potentially this employee could leave and take another position, and that money could be used for them in the future.
Well, that's what we have right now. That's what you have right now.
But
the only difference is that you can't cash pay it out. You have to use it for health insurance. So that's what we have right now. But that's not what this says on here. It says it has to be, you have to be WRS eligible to receive the money. I'm reading it right on your page 2 here.
If there's clarification you want to make, but was what you did. You grandfathered employees hired before 2016. Now, you can always change that. This is the handbook. But one of the directions was you didn't want to take a benefit away. I think it was termed, you were going to pay it in a different way potentially, or the employee would get it and access it in a different way. So one of the ideas of the no cash payout is, well, they get the full benefit amount of that payout that they can only use once they leave employment with the city.
And then they would get the cash.
Well, again, after it's, I think where I'm reading the mayor's, I'm trying to read into his comment, is it's pretty clear on that second schedule. If you're hired under September 20, 2016, you don't get 100% unless you're retirement age eligible, regardless of how many years you could have.
Way up to 20.
Does this eliminate the problem we've had? You called it the Edelbeck rule of giving a big lump sum and then the budget takes a big hit and we can't hire
No,
anybody
it
for
doesn't
6 months.
eliminate it. What it does is by limiting the employees to just having it in health insurance, what it's doing is it's giving them a vehicle to put that dollars instead of what they do right now is they can only defer up to a certain dollar amount, especially if they've been deferring all year long and now they've retired or they're leaving in September. Let's say I left in September, but I've been deferring all along. This feds only limit how much I can defer. And so I can't defer anymore. And if I go to a new employer, I still can't defer because I'm maxed out for that year. So what I'm trying to do is provide a vehicle for employees to be able to put that money tax-free just for health insurance. They can't go retire and buy that pickup truck. You know, this is just for health insurance. I'm trying to get it so that if an employee is determining whether or not he can retire, and health insurance is that sticking point. If you have enough money that I can put in tax-free and use it for health insurance, that employee might retire sooner. And now I've got the possibility of having a younger employee to come in and fill that position. So that's where I'm looking at it from, is just that there's this vehicle. The other option is, you know, to get rid of the IRS conflict in our audit statements, we just give you cash. We have no option. You don't get to stay on my health insurance. I don't give you any money for health insurance. It's that. And then you make the tax consequences. So I might take that payout now in September. Well, I might be at 30%, and that might have just changed my income tax, and now I'm going to be cussing the city out because in April when I do my 1040, I still owe the feds more money. So what I'm trying to do is just give the employees a tax-free vehicle of where they can put their money because of the limitations that they have with deferred comp.
Okay, it's more for the employees than the city's problem with the lump sums and we.
Well, other than I get to.
See, I'm confused now. Yeah, like you.
Yeah, it saves money because you don't have to pay the Social Security tax on it and other taxes and expenses that you have.
Medicare too.
But we're also, and I thought we were all on the same page as this, we have an example of somebody that's 42 years old, has 20 years of experience, takes that lump sum money, sticks it in his pocket, whether it's whatever that money is, goes and gets another job and gets the same benefits. It's an incentive for that person to leave his job here because he's going to get that money and put it in his pocket. We don't want that. The sick leave was to be used for retirement purposes, to pay for either your health insurance or medical costs that you will have once you are WRS eligible.
And in the
That's the way it should be worded.
And in the handbook, it is worded for anybody that's hired after 2016.
I have a question. Now, when you say WRS eligible, I was WRS eligible 6 months after I started the Veterans Home.
Eligible to receive you're vested then.
Well,
I'm vested, right? Yeah, I'm vested.
you're vested right away. However, you have to have 10 years in with Wisconsin retirement. They've changed, now it's back down to 5?
Well, it's 5. Yeah, I'm vested in the employer portion at 5.
Okay. The other caveat that you would have to put in there that Wisconsin, they're able to retire and they're Wisconsin WRS eligible, and you could put the caveat that I've had in previous contracts is that without penalty. You cannot take an early retirement. You have to be fully vested.
What you're not getting here is that the wording is not correct, because I'm eligible for WRS right now for the retirement system. You'd have to say WRS eligible and retired.
And retired.
Yes, or something to that fact, or WRS, or taking a pension from the WRS system.
You could, yes, you could have.
You can take your WRS money and get both halves right now.
If I were to leave,
you could take the employee and the employer amount.
Yes, if I were to leave my job.
I mean, I'm in the WRS fund too, still, from my years back when I was teaching, but I had to wait until I was age 55 before I could.
Yeah, you have to be age 55 for general employees and 53 for protective.
Right, Dave? You're in the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be Wisconsin retirement eligible, because we just had an employee that just retired last month from Public Works. He's not eligible. He's 54.
He has to wait a year.
He has to wait a year before he can get his annuity.
Otherwise, he's only going to get the employee share.
Or otherwise, he's only going to get the employee share.
And what that's saying is two different things.
Yeah, I think
right. The word.
To contribute to the system, almost right away.
It needs to be that you're eligible to retire.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right, it'd be the
Sorry.
definition of retirement.
And that makes sense. And it would be easier to understand.
Yes, that's what I'm just trying to make that point.
So that's the cleanup you want to see in that handbook then? Is that the action, the policy? The change in the wording?
Well, yeah, you don't want any ambiguity in it.
Right.
Right.
All right, so you gotta remember the sick leave payout is a legacy of many, many years of union negotiations. And that got picked up, when we initially did the handbook. And of course, when Act 10 came, we came back through and, we looked at that whole thing again. And it was the policy to keep it then. So I'm not sure, Mayor, does that address your concerns on the language?
Well, it needs to include all employees. All employees.
He's talking that there is no grandfather clause. It's all
What you're
employees.
suggesting is we all go to get 100%, you gotta retire. You eligible?
Or you don't get it until you retire. You don't lose it. You just don't get it until you retire.
So somebody has 10, basically you're suggesting everybody goes to the one schedule on the bottom? Keep it here, or how do we?
I mean, Henry, we've had this discussion and you were gonna come up with some percentages of if you were here 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, how much you would receive of that. But I think we've said all along that, and correct me wrong, Council, we don't want to take away benefits from employees that they've already received those benefits. we're not taking those benefits away if we make all employees wait till they're retired. Even the ones that you say are grandfathered in, they're still getting the full benefit. They just have to wait until they retire to get it.
Well, can I ask a question? Go ahead. Can I ask a question? Okay, we have under the top schedule somebody that works 10 years. They get 50% of the value of their sick leave accumulation. So you're saying they don't lose it, but they got to wait to retirement. So they leave us, we hold that money, and then they have to come back 20 years from now to get it?
You got different sets of employees, though. You have the employees after Act 10.
Right.
And you have the employees before that. And there's employees that, Act 10's only been around for what, 6 or 7 years now, right? I don't know how many years it's been.
2011.
Right? Okay. So those employees that were here before Act 10, they're not gonna lose their benefits. They're gonna get them in the future, but they're not gonna get them at age 42 and stick it in their pocket and move on to a different job. They're gonna have to wait till they're retire, and then we'll give them the money.
But do they have to be a City of Waupaca employee to get it? I guess that's the question. If they leave employment and they're 42, do we hold that benefit on their behalf for 12, 15 years before they retire to get it?
It goes into a trust account.
Right, it would dump in there.
Can
Can we put rules on it?
we can write the rules on the trust so that if somebody does leave instead of retire, that money isn't available until age 50, 55, which is Wisconsin retirement.
Or 52.
Or 53 for that.
Yeah, that would be the ideal.
So you're still comfortable with the pre-2016 grandfathering, this new 2016 schedule, changes to the definition of retirement, and putting rules on this payout if they leave before they actually retire? Yeah, I'm sorry.
We need to talk in the mic.
It's just the dollar amounts you're looking at with those rules, so, and then.
Well, it sounds like, first of all, we have to get the union, the police union, to get on board. That's number one. And then number two, once we get them on board, the easy part is to make it so it's not a cash payout, all right? It has to be used for health insurance. The tough part for the employees is now they have to wait till they're age 55 before they can get the money. So now, if they're looking to get money at age 42, they're not gonna get this money until they retire.
But they're not getting the money then either. It's only if they get sick or use it as health things.
They will, once they retire, they'll get it.
In cash?
I don't think they get cash.
No, it stays in there as a reimbursement account, so you have to spend it. It's like a flex spending account.
I know, but just for health, and I don't know that, I don't know that that is appealing.
Well, that's the way people go through that kind of money easily.
Yeah, but if you're retired, you have Medicare and then your supplement.
But you can use this to pay your Medicare premium. You can use this to pay your supplements. You can.
And that's well and good, but if you're looking at a large amount of money, you might never use it after you retire.
You'll use it.
Oh, yeah, you'll use
Guaranteed
it.
you'll use it. Especially if you retire at 55.
And your deductibles, oh, yeah.
And it includes your spouse if you're married.
Pays, yeah.
You know, so it could go on forever. There's a possibility that, you're right, some people might lose on this, but I don't think so. Like Henry said, even if you have 40 grand sitting in there, that's less than 2 years worth of health insurance that you're gonna pay for at age 55. You're not even on Medicare yet at age 55, and you're eligible for it.
North Shore Bank has had this program in place since 2006. It has over 50 municipalities in these programs. They have never paid out had anybody not use all of their money, because this is the first dollar money. So if I'm retired, I am going to use this money instead of my cash to pay my co-pays, my insurance premiums, anything, because I want to use this money first and then use whatever else I have. So the money goes very fast, and I think Becky had said she had one employee that had over $130,000 in that account, and it didn't last him more than 5 years. It goes very fast. If you do not have an employer who's paying your health insurance premium, we're looking at $20,000 a year premiums for families right now. And that doesn't even include the $6,000 deductible on that a year, or the other $4,000 in co-insurance or co-pays. That money does not go very far. If you start adding it up, if you really looked at it that you retired and you had $40,000 in it, and you had just an employee and a spouse policy, it would only last you 2 years. It's a $12,000 premium, and that doesn't include $5,000 worth of, or $6,000 worth of deductibles. So now you're talking another 12. That money's gone first dollar. So we're looking at it is if that's the case, is that we would write in the trust that money, if you don't retire, Wisconsin retirement eligible to retire, that money doesn't get to be spent. You don't get that money, and we can write that into that trust.
So can I ask you a question, Brian? The main reason you're looking at wanting to have that for the employees before 2016, the main reason you're looking at having that for retirement is so it's not a temptation to put into your pocket and leave. Is that your main thought behind that?
Well, there's two thoughts. That is very important to me, yes. And the second reason is that I guess it goes along with that too, quite honestly, is that when these employees, if they leave at age 42 and they don't get it, and then they decide to retire at 55, they're going to be happy that that money's there to be used for medical purposes, and they didn't go out and buy a brand new 2017 Camaro with it.
And they didn't have to pay taxes on it.
Right, and they don't have to pay taxes.
That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, they're winning.
Yeah, everybody's winning with this.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking that.
It's not a retirement fund, and they're winning it anyway.
Mayor, there's one other small policy question related to this new vehicle that Kathy's talking about. Is this $50 a day if you're over the cap? Are you okay with that being paid into this account? And it can only be used when the employee retires?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't, why not? I mean, we actually save money by doing that, so.
All right,
I mean,
well, that
I'm
was
okay
something we
with
need
that. I
to
don't know.
square away. Okay,
I mean,
thank
this
you.
is just a proposal that you're gonna bring forward.
Right,
obviously.
we're just having a conversation. You'll officially make a
Sorry,
decision.
Paul, I said this wasn't gonna take very long. Yeah.
We're just I'm looking for directions as to where I need to finalize the budget, the numbers, where we're going.
Well, I'm sorry, because I thought that I made myself pretty clear on what I wanted, and what I got was not the same thing. Now, you obviously have the right to vote on that, but I thought that's what you were gonna bring forward was what my request was. So, now we're getting it.
Okay, longevity. We were directed by council to look at options for longevity. And
You can go to Kathy's sheet. I think she has it on the back.
no, that's not the one. No, this is the bad one. This one's got a formula error. No, that's his. The longevity piece is that we would, option one was I looked at is we would adopt the same type of longevity pay that the police union has. So they would get 12 cents an hour after 5 years, 20 cents an hour after 10, 35 cents an hour after 15, and 50 cents an hour after 20. The cost for the general fund alone was approximately $23,000 just to do that. And that was just for 18. So, and
So that's a perpetual amount.
it's a
if we did-
perpetual amount. On top of the 1%, you're talking almost $70,000 I have to come up with. I'm sorry, I can't afford that right now. Or we can't afford that right now. I can't find that kind of capacity within the operating budget to be able to do both. And then if you only give it to some people, you're not giving a raise to all employees. So Henry has another plan, and that's the yellow paper.
Yeah. And I think at some future point, 4, 5, 6 years from now, maybe that type of structure for longevity can be affordable. But in the short term and midterm, put together something that is very similar kind of to what we're sort of doing now, but council's never adopted a policy. We have somebody that comes in, we observe their 20th anniversary, and it's sort of an ad hoc thing. We give them a certificate, maybe a nice plaque, and a $75 gift certificate to the chamber. We had a long-term employee, 30 years, a month or two ago, plaque, or no, a certificate and a $150 gift certificate. Well, as we did some research, or as I did some research on this, there are communities, cities in Wisconsin that do longevity kind of the way that Kathy described it to you. It's an annual thing. You hit certain benchmarks, you get a little bit more per hour. It's not built into your base pay. It's a kind of a bonus. But other cities do something similar to what I'm proposing, but this is a little different in that a city within Waupaca County, they give you $50 per year. You qualify for it once you hit year 5. So year 6, you help me do the math, you get $200, you get $300. Year 7, you get $350. Year 8, every year. And that becomes an expensive proposition because every employee, right, is at some year in their employment with the city, and that all adds up. What this proposal is based on actual anniversary dates, significant anniversaries. It's a one-time payment. You know, at year 5, an employee would get $100. It'd be a lump sum payment. It's taxable. Again, equates to $20 a year. 10 years, you can see it, $250, 15, 20. And even at the top of the scale, at 30 years, it would be $40 per year. Now, the cost to do that in 2018 is about $3,200, and we think that's affordable. The only other thing to say about this is we would just do away with certificates. We found out that nobody likes the plaques. They don't hang them in their office. They kind of get put on the bookcase or in the drawer. And we're spending, depending on the vendor, $30 to $50 on the plaque that I think the employee would rather have the cash. And I guess this is just an administrative thing. I'm proposing to pay it on their anniversary date. Now maybe Kathy for cash flow would say we pay it in January of every calendar year and I budget it and I pay it one time. Administratively, it might be simpler to do it that way. She's saying no. But the point is, the schedule would be the schedule. And then the only other policy question, I guess, I would ask you to consider is to maybe make it, because we're still in year 2017, to consider maybe paying it for this year. And it would involve 6 employees. And that cost would be $3,950. But the big thing here is we don't have a policy to pay it. It's kind of ad hoc. We need some direction from the council, I think, on, we need direction on how you want to do this, even if you want to. Again, are the dollar amounts per anniversary here, significant anniversary, what you want? Again, I kind of pegged it off some other communities that I found some information on in Wisconsin. And as I said, another community in Waupaca County is paying $50 a year. So you'd have to be with us 30 years to get 40. And again, this isn't indexed or anything, right? So $100, you know, sometime in 10 years from now or something, somebody's probably going to have to look at this again and make some judgments. But I think there's a very affordable way to implement longevity kind of along this structure if you're open to it and supportive.
Also included in this is the regular part-time employees. So not only is it full-time employees, but he's put in this mix also the regular part-time employees.
And following the typical structure with them, they kind of get a half of the benefit when they are offered a benefit. They kind of get half of the value of a benefit.
Henry, do we have a turnover problem in the city?
No.
Okay.
Do they only get paid on 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20?
Correct.
They don't get paid 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Nope. There's a one-time payment on that, and I would not pay it at the beginning of the year because my anniversary date's November. I could leave in July.
I spent my entire career with the private sector, so this public sector stuff is kind of new to me. But the company I worked for had the similar kind of schedule, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year awards on the anniversary date of hire. Although we didn't get cash, we got a catalog of items to choose from, which is another possibility. And just another footnote I would make. I accumulated over 6 months of sick leave before I retired, and I didn't get paid a dime. The policy was not to pay for sick leave. So I wish I would have abused sick leave more while I was working.
I came from my past to my last employer for the Village of Greendale. There was no payout in sick leave if you left. So when I left my sick leave bank on the table after 8 years. Whereas Brown Deer went and had it so that I had so much in my bank, anything over would go into my HRA. Every year, if I didn't use it, I was a good girl. Instead of $50, it would go in there. But when I left, I was grandfathered, so I was able to put it all into the HRA. The new employees were not going into the HRA. They didn't get it when they left. They got it when they retired, but you couldn't leave and get it. So it's a mixture out there in the public sector. It depends on the union that was in place before Act 10.
I see I'm sorry, Paul.
I've been asked to speak into the microphone. The state dropped longevity pay quite a number of years ago, so no one at the Veterans Home gets that anymore, for what it's worth.
Anybody else? Sorry, I don't want to. I see the advantage of doing longevity pay the way Henry is suggesting, in that it's a one-time thing if you were to do it, so it's not added to their salary every year. It's just like a bonus, so to speak, and they would only get it. It's obviously taxable to them. That's the one advantage, obviously, to that. The disadvantage, obviously, is you got $4,000 that you're going to need just for this year to pay for that. We're only proposing a 1% pay increase to our employees when the cost of living increase is 2% anyway. So, I would rather see everybody get another percent so that they keep up with the cost of living versus just looking at longevity pay, which only impacts 6 people. Now, I know if we give another 1%, it's gonna be much more than $4,000. I get that. But I think, you know, if we were looking to try and give the other employees a raise, we have to look at our priorities here. If we can figure out a way to raise that 1% a little bit when we get done, that would truly be my option, quite honestly. I'm not against necessarily longevity pay, but again, I think we have to prioritize that too.
I guess I'm looking at is that this year's another one of those lean years. It's not that I have $50,000 in levy capacity to do. I have 14,000. So I think, you know, I think we can afford the what we have and make do. And then when we have the capacity is to maybe do some longevity or some type of plan at that point in time.
Okay. Anything else on longevity pay? I think that's a no for now, Henry. To at least put in the budget. It's something you can bring up again in the budget process, I suppose.
Brian, you want to go first? Personnel, we've got the
Okay.
personnel requests.
So we're going to move on to personnel. There are basically two requests for personnel tonight, the police department and then the Parks and Rec department. So, and Brian chose
Am I
to go
fine
first.
right here, or do I gotta get up to the podium?
No, you're great, right where you're at.
All right. Back in July, the police department had submitted a COPS grant for some federal funding for $125,000. That application was submitted back in July. I should be hearing within the next week or two whether we received that grant or not. But over the next 3 years, if we did receive that grant, it would be $125,000 that we could put towards hiring a new officer. The reason why we went forward with seeking a full-time drug position is I pulled up some numbers today. Since 2014, we've handled over 281 drug complaints. That doesn't include possession ones where we've maybe arrested somebody for an OWI or anything like that. But that's just 281 complaints. That doesn't include the 30, I'm going to have to correct this, there's 37 documented overdoses of opiates tonight because while I've been sitting in the meeting, we responded to an opiate overdose and actually had to use the Narcan tonight to bring the person back. So in 2014, we had 84 drug complaints that we just responded to. 2015, 76. 2016, 58. And so far this year, 64 drug complaints that we've responded to, and the year's not over. Looking at overdoses, in 2014, we only had 4. 2015, we had 5. 2016, we had 5. 2017, I had 22. It is now 23. And these are documented overdoses that we've had where people have not used Narcan to bring their friends back. So it's 23 just this year. We obviously, like every other community, there's an opiate problem that's going on. There's a drug problem. And that's the biggest reason why we're seeking this drug grant, as to we're trying to take a proactive approach in regards to drug enforcement. Right now, we're just responding to complaints and doing the best that we can do with the staff that we have. We have a MEG officer that works just overtime, and when he can fit that in, or the officers respond to the complaints. So in seeking that grant, the cost to the city the first year that we would have that, if we would receive it, if we were to start in June or July of next year, would be approximately $8,500 to our budget. In 2019, the total would be $17,800, and in 2020, the cost would be approximately $28,000, and in 2021, we would have to pay the full amount of that officer, which we're kind of estimating to be approximately $80,000. Now, I have spoken with Kathy, the mayor, and Henry in regards to the cost. I would not be going forward with this if we do not get the grant application, because I know just in sitting in this meeting tonight, unfortunately, we don't have the money. We need the position, but we don't have that money. So, that would be my request. I guess I would open that up to any questions.
Anybody have any questions of the chief? And again, you said that we should know within the next couple of weeks, so before the budget is finalized, we'll know if we're going to receive that grant or not?
Yes, what I was told, I received an email about a week and a half ago that the application process, they would be sending the results after the end of September. So I'm hoping that's within the next couple weeks here.
So this officer would be dedicated to drug enforcement?
That is correct. Right now, we just have an officer that does it part-time. Maybe, I would say 5 or 10% of his time is dedicated to that. We have approximately, I think, $5,000 in overtime right now for that officer to work. And if you think about overtime hours to reach $5,000, and that officer's working overtime at $35, $40 an hour, that doesn't take long to get to that threshold. And if we're looking at big, long investigations, that can be eaten up within 2 or 3 months.
So what will the officer be doing? I mean, you're talking about a full-time officer.
The full-time drug officer.
Right.
They would be proactive in this. We're getting drug complaints all the time, and we're doing the best that we can to investigate those complaints. We try to work as much as we can right now with the sheriff's departments, with their assistance, but they're just running so thin because they have other demands that are in the county, and we're trying to do the best that we can.
I'm sure you are. I'm just trying to understand. If you want to be proactive, so I presume you're talking prevention.
Yes, prevention,
education.
Okay. We have many complaints that we get where we get anonymous complaints that come in that this person's dealing drugs on this street or that person is dealing drugs on that street. We could actually dedicate an officer to do a full investigation into that person. We've always said we know the people that are using and dealing drugs, but to catch them doing things is a lot harder when you don't have the personnel that can watch them for many hours during the day.
If we're awarded the grant, obviously, the council would then vote on this position once we know that we've been awarded the grant. Brian is bringing this forward tonight to tell you that if we are awarded, this dollar amount is in our budget, and we then would be required to keep this position for 4 years. I think, again, his plan is to just hire somebody in June of next year, so the impact next year will not be as great as it will be in the future years. But there will be grant money for 3 years.
The grant is capped at $125,000. So each year that you submit the reimbursement, depending on what your costs are for that officer, that grant can go much faster than what 3 years will be.
But if you agree to the grant, you're agreeing to 4 years.
Right.
You would have to have a drug officer for 4 years. Whether you use all that money up in 1 year, you would still have to have 3 more years of that. So you are making a commitment to this position if you agree to that. Nobody's asking you tonight to make that decision necessarily, because we don't even know if we got the grant yet. But this, and I know Brian has made this presentation before, and he feels that this is a very important position for the city's police department. And, you know, we're all listening to the news and reading the newspapers and social media, and there is a drug issue, no doubt about it. And, you know, we've gone away with the drug courts. That's helped to help to clean people up. But there still are issues out there. And, you know, if you have children and grandchildren that, and even adults that you're concerned about, you know, you would be all on board with this, because this is something that we really need to get people to change their attitudes on using the drugs.
Mayor, if I may add, you know, another aspect to this too is a lot of the burglaries, theft complaints, the robberies, and everything that you see, a majority of those are all drug related. And if we can reduce the drug offenders, you're going to also see a drop in other crimes to property, to persons, and anything else.
We do have, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, when I first heard about it, I said, you know, can we really afford it, and how are we going to fit this into our budget? But at the same token, you know, if we have the ability to find some money to help us subsidize it for a while, you know, we might have to think about, can we afford not to have it? Because it might save us money in other areas, like Brian was just bringing up too. And so again, this is something that we'll be discussing in the near future, but right now it is in the budget for 2018.
I think too, it's what the community needs. Yes, it's in his budget, but I think it's a commitment to our community to move forward with some of this.
Okay. Yeah, Any other comments on that? Brian, anything else you want to add to it?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I have some requests that affect two positions in our department. One is our office clerk at the rec center, the other is a senior center coordinator. Although it affects two positions, it's really only gaining the department a half of a position. And I'll explain that here. We'll touch base with the office clerk first. Just want to give a little bit of history. In 2011, our department was in a little bit of transition period. At that time, the decision was made. They actually, before that, had 1.5 people in the office area. And we went down to 2 part-timers, so 2 20 hours a week. We've been in that period for about 6 years now. And we have made it work, and it's worked okay. And there's been times where it's not worked okay. I was just informed 2 weeks ago that one of those part-timers took a position in Appleton, and actually her last day was last week. And this is something that we saw as an opportunity to move that to full-time. By moving it to full-time, the wages are already in place because those hours we're already getting paid for in that other. So this person would opt out. We've had that conversation as Kathy talked to moving it to that $5,000. So the extra cost in that direct position, we're looking at a $5,000 increase to that. Some of the issues that we had with that position before, you're asking 2 different people to do the same job with 2 completely different personalities, which has caused problems in a number of areas. We also have some communication breakdowns from time to time. The way we've structured it is mornings and afternoons with them flip-flopping, switching off every full Friday. Like we said, we made it work, but I think we can be a lot more efficient if we go to that full-time for the $5,000 opt-out benefit. So are there any questions on the office clerk position before I get to the senior center coordinator?
There's a guarantee that that person will opt out. Because otherwise we're talking.
Yeah, I would go back to Yeah, if she doesn't, then we have to talk again. But it sounds like that'll happen. We'll know before we pass the budget. She has told me that yes, she will opt out. All right, moving on to the senior center coordinator. The senior center coordinator currently works 29 hours per week. Gone back and forth. Used to be 32 hours per week before the Affordable Health Care Act. Went down to 29 hours. In my time here, which has been about 6.5 years, the senior center has moved from below 500 members to around 750. We expect that to continue to go in that direction with the demographics in our community. The current senior center coordinator has been here for a couple of years. Some things about the senior center coordinator position. She is managing her own part-time staff. I asked her to be creative with how to do that budgetary wise. She is scheduling. She has dealt with a lot of turnover recently in that part-time staff. We were lucky enough for a while to have all those part-timers be here for a number of years. And she is filling in and running programs, whether it be exercise, computer classes, art classes, and kind of running around doing that while she has these vacancies. Obviously, the senior center is a resource for our seniors in our community to get them in the right places if there's resources at the county that they need to help them with, things like that. We've been lucky enough to have very dedicated senior center employees that are doing the work that needs to be done. And sometimes, often, that work is more than 29 hours per week. That person right now gets paid $17.81 per hour, which I think is a fair hourly wage. It comes out to about $24,000 a year, and with the responsibilities that we ask of that position, that's not something that I envision keeping somebody in a position like that for any long period of time, whether it be this person, the next person, the next person, if that person is a good employee and wants the senior center to succeed. Both of these positions that I'm bringing forward, this person would also has expressed that they would do the opt-out benefit as well. Both of these positions that I'm bringing forward were mentioned in our strategic plan that we did in 2014, which I attached. I think maybe you'll see that in the budget packet, Kathy, some of the personnel justifications and things. And both of these are coming forward with a budget that is not an increase. So we made adjustments in other areas. These would not increase our total budget from last year. So we were able to go in, see some trends, feel comfortable enough cutting in a few other areas to get these in without asking for more money. Are there any questions on that?
So if you're looking at 2 part-time positions going to full-time position with an opt-out, you're still increasing cost by what the proposed new opt-out amount would be $5,000.
Yeah, so the total increased cost in personnel, we're talking around $23,000 with all of them. So that is what we had to find in other areas to cut, essentially, to get these in those positions.
One of the other advantages of the senior individual too would be that she would now become a salaried employee, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And
that would be, yeah, her job description fits a salaried employee's job description, so that is what we're thinking. We have cut back on some fundraisers on weekends over the last year or so because of limited hours. Some of those could come back, which helps the senior center as well.
Scott, you had your hand up, sorry.
So basically you just said, though, you can absorb what you're proposing with the same budget you had this year. I mean, you're not asking for more money, are you, or am I wrong?
I'm not asking for more money.
You're just reallocating.
I'm reallocating. We looked at trends over the last 3 years. The things that we cut are not things that you will see that will affect service. You know, if we had to cut much more, you might see something that would affect service. So.
Other questions? And this, well, there's no dollar effect for this, but this is in the budget set up this way also. Okay.
Dollar effect that it goes to. Because which is part-time, or they're both part-time, and they get other benefits. But they're opting out, I understand that.
Yeah, the only impact on the part-time office clerk is that there's the $5,000 for the opt-out for the health insurance.
Well, there is an effect. As Aaron said, there's 23 grand that it's going
But
to
that's
cost.
for, most of that is for the,
Health
10 of it's for the health insurance. The other 13 is for the salary for the makeup on the senior coordinator.
It's 12.4 in wages, and then it's like $400 some in long-term disability, that kind of stuff, when we looked at it. So that's what makes up the 20.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions of Aaron? Anything else for the Kathy, Henry? That's it?
Thank you for your time.
Well, guys, and thanks for a good night tonight. I appreciate you sticking in here with us. As Mr. Peterson has said to me, he'd rather have one long night than 3 short nights, so we took care of it for him tonight. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Keela and second by Peterson that we adjourn till our, we adjourn the committee of the whole meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. We are adjourned 2 minutes before curfew.